Well, howdy, 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 everyone, and welcome back to One Civil Law, where, as always, we learn through the misfortunes of others. I am your host, Uncivil Law, a licensed attorney in both Texas, Virginia, and before the United States Supreme Court, and we are here with our continuing coverage of the Scot Peterson trial. Scott, the prosecution has rested their case, and now we're going to start hearing from the defense, and possibly the defendant himself. We don't know. So I'm not sure what witnesses this defendant has in their own behalf. So we will see. So far, the state's theory of the case is a little thin. I feel like they overpromised and underdelivered a little bit. They seem to indicate that, that this guy was behind a car for some extended period of time, but they weren't able to testify about that. Or I misunderstood them. Either way, I felt like the evidence was a little bit thinner. We have points, scattered plots, and we don't know the connective tissue between. We did not have any bombshell during this trial, somewhat disappointingly. Or if there was a bombshell, I misunderstood it. Because I thought they said 40 minutes and maybe they said 4. So maybe I misunderstood how long the time frame was. So maybe I misheard, but that's what I had heard. So I was disappointed. We will see. And what we do have the defendant doing seems like it might be arguably reasonable under the circumstances, right? Your execution of duty, of course, assuming you have it, has to be within the set of the circumstances, and that's arguably true here.
I have Ms. Gomes, Mr. Killerman, Mr. Klinger present for the state. I have Mr. Igarsh present with Mr. Peterson, who likewise is present. We are outside the presence of the jury. The state having rested their case. Any motions on behalf of the defendant, Mr. Igarsh?
Yes, Your Honor. First, we would renew all motions made throughout this trial, including the ones made during jury selection and throughout the state's case. And we would be moving for a judgment of acquittal on all 11 counts. The court knows each and every element. I don't have to go through them. The court heard the testimony in this case, and we do not believe that the state has
Your Honor, I think the court well knows the standard, the light most favorable evidence. Looking at the evidence in the light most favorable to the state has put forward considerable evidence to the jury to allow them to go.
I'm not sure on that perjury count, to be honest. That perjury count is really thin, man. I'm not sure you've put forward a prima facie case on the perjury, to be quite honest.
When does the defendant become a caregiver? When does the defendant become a caregiver for the listed victims in counts 1 through 10, or 1 through 7?
Well, when does he become the caregiver? He becomes a caregiver once he becomes the SRO of the school. But if you want individual to those.
Well, he's not charged with anything as it relates to the victims on the first floor, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I presume that means at some point you determine, or the state has determined he's not a caregiver that has criminal liability for what takes place on the first floor.
Oh,
But you're telling me he does have criminal liability for what takes place on the third floor. So my question is, when does he become a caregiver to the people on the third floor?
The reason he wasn't charged with anyone on the first floor is he couldn't have gotten there in time to help him in any way. So we decided, since he was still on his way to the scene, not to charge him with the first floor, that we would only charge him with what happened after he arrived, which is about the time that he's with the shooters with bikes, killing bikes. So
you're saying as a caregiver for everyone, but I'm looking at the first element as to neglect of a child, 827.03. You're saying the first element doesn't apply to anyone on the first floor because it's nothing that he did or failed to do that would have changed anything that happened on the first floor. Is that what you're telling me?
Exactly. We didn't feel that because he wasn't even there yet, he couldn't have gotten there any faster. That went in there to have charged him with those. And that was a decision made, a filing decision that was made at the very beginning.
So caregiver for everybody?
Yes,
All the 4,000 students at the school,
yes, sir.
and the 40 acres of the school grounds, or whatever the size is.
Yes, he is.
In other words, every school resource officer, the state's position is every school resource officer is a caregiver for every student at every public school upon setting foot on the campus.
The school that he's contracted to,
Right.
he is the SRO. That's the special relationship that you see from the contract, and you see in the various training that he has.
Contract
That
sucks.
he has a special relationship with the students, faculty, and administrators of the school.
Dismiss it. Do it.
He takes on that
Do
role.
it. Dismiss
It's a
it.
Contractual role.
Do it. Do it. Do it.
Documents into evidence. You see he has special powers, SROs, right? They can detain students, they can search without probable cause. They're given all these various extra rights that a patrolman on the street does not have. And
Oh, come on, Judge. Oh,
But the SRO does.
show me you
SRO is
big
a different
big boy
position,
balls.
and
Dismiss this
operates
case.
under a different set, in some instances, under a different set of rules. So you do have a very special relationship between him and the school.
Bullshit.
Therefore, he is there to protect the school.
Bullshit.
That's the whole point of it. And that's why he's the head of security. You should know the school inside and out, know the security system inside and out. He is there for the daily stuff that goes wrong, and then when, God forbid, things really go wrong. It doesn't matter. That's his.
You could dismiss the perjury count as a matter of law.
So
No reasonable jury can find it.
Can I just add one more thing?
Sure.
We feel that this.
And dismiss the count because they failed to prove an essential element of this charge.
The character.
Do it.
That's
Dismiss the
not-
entire indictment. Do
We
it.
made a legal decision way back a couple weeks ago about, or maybe it was even longer than that, about what statutes we were going to apply caregiver. But for now, it's the state's position. We've given.
it's not my decision, I'm just looking at the standard instructions from the Florida Supreme Court. You charged them under 827.03 subsection 2B, and the Florida Supreme Court has promulgated standard jury instructions for 827.03 subsection 2B.
What was that number, Judge?
827.03, number 2, little b. And the third element is that the defendant was a caregiver for whichever alleged victim was.
Right.
I mean, you're right, that's a jury question, but I guess I'm trying to figure out, looking at it like most favorable to the state, have you proven that with the evidence?
Well, also there was evidence of him being a mentor, one of the reasons behind the program.
Oh,
I
bullshit.
believe The case was cited to when you were working on the motion to dismiss Braddy.
I can't raise the court feed. I can't do it.
To the students at the school. That's part of the program.
It's already maxed out.
There was quite.
There's nothing more I can do.
Point of view, there was quite a bit of evidence that went in for the jurors to decide whether or not he has a caregiver position.
The second element, let's say you get over the caregiver hurdle, the second element, as to counts 1 through 7, says in doing so, or at least in counts 1 through 6, the defendant caused great bodily harm, permanent disability, or permanent disfigurement to the listed victim. Did Mr. Cruz do that?
Are you taking that from the jury instructions?
Yes, sir.
Show us that you have big judge balls. It sounds like he's thinking about it. It sounds like he's thinking about it. I'd be very impressed if the judge dismisses this case.
Element number 2 of neglect of a child.
Big boy balls.
16.5 is the defendant caused great bodily harm, permanent disability, or permanent disfigurement to, and then you fill in the listed victim. So, tell me what the evidence is that he caused great bodily harm, permanent disability, or permanent disfigurement?
Well, that, Judge, I believe, if I've got it correct, that comes from it's in the jury instructions underneath the list of the 4 elements that need to be proven. And it's also in the statute that comes from the neglect itself can be based on repeated conduct or a single incident or omission that resulted in or reasonably could.
How often I've seen a case dismissed at this point?
Serious physical
Not often.
injury or a substantial risk of
Not
death.
often, but every once in a
It's
while.
all read together because that's the whole purpose of it, is that you did not supply, you did not give the care that you were supposed to do.
Jerry, maybe he's
And
having
that
second
resulted
thoughts
in
about that
the
ruling.
injury.
Maybe he's having second
So
thoughts
you,
about the
by your
jury should hear
omission, by
this.
not doing what you were supposed
He's not
to
bound
do,
by his own
caused-
prior rulings,
By
so he could change his mind.
That's the state's theory.
I know, I realize the word cause, you know, at times makes people maybe pause, not pause, but pause for a second. But that is how the statute reads, and that is how it's read in parimutuel, the other paragraphs in the statute itself, and it's in the jury instruction. That omission, at least in this case, we're talking about, it's not always an omission either here. We're not saying, there's some things that were omitted, but there's also some things that he did that didn't do any good or weren't helpful. So he did do certain things and didn't do other
Those things cause severe harm.
Yeah, I understand that, but in 827.03, it says, a person who willfully or by culpable negligence neglects a child and in doing so causes great bodily harm, permanent disability, or permanent disfigurement. It's in the jury instruction as well, that he caused it. So the state's position is that the defendant caused these injuries, or at least enough so to be held criminally responsible for them?
The defendant, it comes, yes, because it comes from the qualification. That's there in the instructions and in 827.03 itself.
Okay, defense lawyer, I beg you, when you get up,
Number 3.
the judge is leaning your way. You want to soft pedal this a little bit. You know, you don't want to yell at the judge. Just be like, Your Honor, is already. What you do is it seems to be leaning your way and be like, Your Honor. You always flatter the judge when you can. Your Honor has already highlighted exactly the problem. They have failed to make their prima facie case. As Your Honor has already pointed out, he is not a caregiver, and as Your Honor's pointed out, under their logic, every school resource officer is a caregiver for every single student under their charge, et cetera, et cetera, et
Your
cetera.
evidence, again, I'm supposed to look at the light most favorable.
That's how you do that, right? You just be like, Your Honor's smartest judge. You're the smartest judge, and you already found it, and your instincts are right, and
And that he
you're a great
failed
judge.
to act or acted incorrectly, so his act
Yeah.
or omission caused these injuries. He would have to know that that was happening, right?
You have to know that the injuries were happening or just the shooting was
He
happening.
would have to know that the danger existed. He would have to know.
All
that
you have to
something's
do as a
going on in
defense
that
lawyer
building.
is literally get up and just repeat back exactly what the judge just said. That's all you have to do here.
Determination on whether it does fit into the statute. I mean, we've
Just
laid
repeat
out
back
all
what the
things
judge
that-
just
that
said.
were done or not done.
Just do that.
during
You'll
that
be
time
great.
period.
The judge may rule against you anyway.
It's not-
but you
and
can't do any
why
better.
the
I don't get a vote, but let's say if I believe in a light most favorable to the state, that you have proven that the defendant.
I know the court volume's low. I can't do anything about it.
Or act in the manner that was consistent with the training. But that's not what the jury's being asked to decide. They're being asked to decide, did he commit the crime of neglect of a child? And the crime of neglect of a child says that he caused the injury. So I guess that's the part that I'm stuck on.
Well,
How did he cause these injuries?
He caused the injury through his omission, or his failure to do what he was supposed to do. He didn't do anything. He goes over and stays for 48 minutes in one spot. Instead of, as you heard some of the testimony today, open the door, check to see what's going on, talk to the students, go toward the sound of the shots. It was all laid out in the information, actually. The various
Defense, you're winning.
you know, not
You're
speaking to
winning.
students,
When he
not
asks
going
you
to
to,
the
when he
sound of
asks
the
you what
gunfire,
you
not
want to
speaking
do,
to students.
just get up and just repeat back what the judge just said. Just do that.
And that then forms the basis of the cause.
Just repeat back what the judge already said.
Continue on because he isn't doing what he's supposed to be doing in the.
That's how you do this. It's easy.
Okay, well, at this point, again, understanding we're not at the end of the trial, we're not at the end of the evidence, but at this point, I am to look at the evidence in a light most favorable to the state. I don't know what part of the evidence, witnesses, or testimony the jury's gonna believe or not believe, but if they believe everything from the state's point of view, I guess they certainly could believe that the elements of each crime have been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, or in fact, they may conclude that it hasn't been, but their decision to make.
Ah,
At this point. So respectfully, the defense motion for judgment of acquittal is going to be denied. Next. Defense
they weren't really able to answer your question. You're like, okay, I think I'll press on
Anything you
anyway.
need me to address before we bring the jury back in?
I think he's hoping that the jury's going to give him his acquittal so he can be taken off the hook.
Of judgment of acquittal. The court was struggling with it, even in a light most favorable to the state. They did not meet the elements of the crime, and I don't believe that we should be continuing with these charges at this time.
Okay. State, anything you need me to address before we bring?
No. You should have spoken longer.
Okay.
You should have spoken
So,
longer.
Mr. Igosh, will please bring the jury back. We'll bring the jury back in, welcome them back from the lunch break, explain to them that the state having rested their case, we're now going to turn to the defense presentation, and I'm going to ask you to call your next witness.
Sounds great.
Okay.
I was hoping the judge would have some big ass balls, but I think what he's hoping.
Hey guys, we are.
I think what he's hoping is the jury will acquit, and then it takes him off the hook. Because judges will do that shit, right? They'll be like, I kind of hope that that they'll take the heat off me. If I cannot make this decision, the jury made it's out of my hands, right? So I think maybe he's secretly hoping the jury will rule in his favor because he doesn't have balls. He doesn't have big ass boy balls. Yeah. Let me see if I can do something more about the audio. See. Okay. Does YouTube audio compressor have settings? Manage extension? Just manages it. Does YouTube audio compressor do anything? I guess we'll find out.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Come on. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Come on in. Ladies and gentlemen, once you're back in those seats, you may be seated. All the parties may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you using your notepads, I'll give you a moment to get the notepads back out. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, when we took our lunch break, the state had rested their case. So at this point, we're now going to turn to the defense presentation. Mr. Igosh, when you are ready, you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defense calls Suzanne Campbell. Suzanne Campbell.
Okay. Well, maybe YouTube audio compressor was the extension I needed to fix my problems. I'm going to disable the extension. Can I turn it off? Okay.
If I could have you come all the way up here to the witness stand, please. Once you reach it, but before you have a seat, you can just stop and look at me. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth. All right, please be seated. And once you are seated, if I can just scoot that chair all the way forward as far as it will go. Can you please state your full name and spell your full name?
Suzanne Campbell. Suzannecamel.
Mr. Igosh, you may inquire.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Campbell.
Good afternoon.
Tell the jurors how you're feeling right now.
I'm nervous.
Have you
A
ever
little
testified?
nauseous, but
Nauseous. Yeah. Have you ever testified in front of a jury before?
no.
I'll have you out of here as quick as possible. Tell us what you do for a living.
I'm a teacher still.
Okay.
I teach with Broward County still, through hospital and Broward.
And when did you start teaching? What year? Do you remember?
2003.
And were you a teacher on February 14th, 2018?
Yes,
Tell the jurors where you were a teacher.
at Stoneman Douglas.
And what building were you in?
My room was in the 700 building.
And where is the 700 building in relation to the 1200 building?
Well, it's like right across the little field.
Okay.
I guess they run parallel to each other.
And is it a far distance or a close distance? How would you characterize it?
It's pretty close, like maybe from here to the back of the room.
Okay. And when you walk out of your classroom, is that the building that you're staring at, the 1200 building?
Yes. Yeah, it's right in front of you when you walk.
And what do you teach? What's your expertise?
Math,
All layers of math?
yes.
And I want to take you back to that day. And what were you doing prior to the fire alarm going off in the afternoon?
Well, I mean, we were having normal classes, and I was giving a test that day,
Okay, some type of math exam to your students?
like a little, yeah.
And what happened while you were giving a math exam?
One of my students was out going to the bathroom, and
Which student was that?
his name was Xavier, and we heard, like the whole class, everybody heard noise, and we didn't know what it was, so I thought immediately that maybe he was throwing something, or I don't know. I just went outside to see if I could see him, because he had gone to the bathroom, and maybe I thought maybe it was him, because he was outside for a little while before that happened. And so then I walked outside, and I turned toward the bathroom area, because when you walk out, it's like an outdoor corridor, I guess.
Let me show you a photograph and just see if you're able to identify. Were you on the first floor or the second floor of the 700 building?
Second floor.
Second floor? Okay. Let me show you what's been marked as defense exhibit. Let me show you what's marked as a defense exhibit E. Do you recognize what's contained in this photograph? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. What are you looking at here?
Well, that's the 700 building. and
Okay.
Behind that, I think, is the 1300.
Okay. Are you able to see where your classroom is located?
Over there, that's the theater.
When you take a look at this photograph, I don't know if your classroom's contained.
Like upstairs in the middle of, like by that tree.
Okay, can you just put your finger as close to it?
I mean, you can't see because of the trees, but it's like right there. It's
Okay.
in between those.
All right. So somewhere towards the middle of the 700 building?
Like right about there, yeah.
And then that building closest to you, is that the 1200 building?
This is, yes.
Okay. And so you think that Xavier is the source of the noise that you're hearing, correct?
Well, at first, yeah, I didn't know what was going on, so I went out to try to see what was happening.
What did those noises sounded like at first when you were inside your classroom?
Loud bangs. None of us had any idea what was going on. It was just kind of got our attention.
Did you, and again, we're talking about before you go outside, right? Because you can
Yes.
hear additional shots, or you hear noises when you go outside, correct? All right, so is that a yes? You have to answer.
Yes.
All right. We're just talking about what you hear inside your classroom before you go outside. What did you think that those noises were? You said loud?
Well, it sounded a little bit like somebody lit firecrackers and threw them outside the door. That's what it sounded like at first.
Did it sound like these were contained within a building or outside?
No, it sounded like it was right outside. I thought it was right outside my room. That's why I thought
Okay,
it was my student.
okay. And so you go outside to investigate. What happens next?
Well, it was pretty empty, actually. There was nobody there, so I turned toward the bathroom to see if I could see where Xavier went, and
Is this all from the second floor balcony where you
Yes.
showed us?
Yes.
Okay. And then what do you do? What happens next?
we started hearing loud noises, pops again, and I didn't know what it was. I just started looking around everywhere, and then he came running around the corner,
He is Xavier. correct?
Xavier, and we just kind of looked at each other, and I said, like, what are you doing? And he said, it's not me, and we had like a quick minute to try to figure out what it was, and like neither one of us like could quite figure out what was going on. It sounded almost like something was being, like, it sounded like fireworks being thrown at us is really what it sounded like. It almost sounded like something even hit the building where we were, but we didn't. No, I yelled at him to get in the room. That was all before the fire alarm, though.
Could you tell whether the shots that you did there ever come a time where you thought that they were shots?
Well, yes, we were in the room for hours. We knew.
But you didn't know what they were when you were on the balcony, correct?
No.
And as best you thought, I think I heard you say you thought somebody was throwing fireworks at you, correct?
Yeah, it was incredibly loud, and you just couldn't, we couldn't figure out what was going on.
I want to freeze the moment when you're on the balcony and go back to your state of mind. Did you think that these firecracker noise, did you think that they were inside a building or outside of a building?
It was just so loud. Instinctively, we bent down. In that picture, you could see the wall. We bent down, but below the wall, just because we didn't know what it was. It just immediately kind of dropped down like that, and then tried to peek over to see what was going on.
Tell the jurors why you bent down. Why did you think that might help?
Well, just because it was so loud, it sounded like something was coming at us. Like, we didn't know what it was. Neither one of us. And then he just ran into the room, and I kind of stayed by the wall for a little bit, and then...
Did you ever think that these were shots coming from inside the 1200 building?
When I was outside, I didn't know what it was.
Give me a moment, Ms. Campbell. I think, by the way, you're no longer teaching at the school, correct?
No.
How come?
Object to it.
I wasn't able to.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell.
Okay, cross-examination, please.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Ms. Campbell.
Hi.
I tend to speak a little bit quickly. If you need me to slow down, just please let me know, okay?
Okay.
Before February 14th, 2018, you had never heard gunshots before, had you?
No.
Now, when you went outside the classroom to find Xavier, from the time that you left your classroom to the time that you went back in, how long would you estimate that was?
It wasn't a lot of time.
Do you think it was more than a minute, less than a minute?
Maybe a minute or two. Because it wasn't just out and back in. We were out there for a little bit trying to figure out what was going on.
Okay, so from the time that you left your classroom to the time that you bent down, how long, and you can estimate this for me, how long would you say that was?
Within a minute, I guess.
Okay. So if that's within a minute and you think you were outside maybe a minute to 2 minutes, how long were you actually bent down peeking over the ledge? You can ballpark it for me, I'm not going to hold you to the exact second.
30 seconds, 40 seconds. Because the noise was happening while that was going on, so,
And these loud, I'm sorry, as you described, Mr. Argosh, very loud noises.
yeah.
It was so loud that you thought something was actually hitting your building 700.
Yeah, and then we weren't sure what was going on. It sounded like something was hitting it, or like a building was collapsing, or something huge. It was just dreadfully loud, and you could tell it was just not, something was wrong. It was very wrong.
And you could tell, even having never heard gunshots before, you knew something was wrong. Maybe that it wasn't gunshots, but something was wrong. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, when you peeked over the ledge, what did you see?
Well, I mean, when you look over the ledge, you could just see straight at the 1200 building.
And did you notice anything specific in the 1200 building or around the 1200 building?
Well, yeah, I could see my head was focusing where the noise was all coming from, I guess. So it caught my eye that I could see into the bottom, like the very bottom window in that first classroom.
So you said that the sound drew your attention. So you could tell generally it was coming from north of you, around the 1200 building.
I just knew it wasn't like at my building, because like I could see everything right around me, so I knew it had to be out there. So I just started looking around. Yeah.
And eventually something in the 1200 building caught your attention.
Yeah, you could see.
What could you see? If you could explain to the jury what you saw.
You could see in the window. It was almost surreal. It was like while the pops were happening, you could see like smoke billowing there.
And what do you mean by smoke billowing? Just if you
Like-
could explain what it looked like. I know it's a tough question, but just the best that you can, if you can explain it to the jury.
Like puffing lightly out the window with the shots.
And with the puffing that you saw, was that
And then I thought the building was collapsing. I thought that was going to happen.
okay? With the puffing that you saw, was that corresponding to the sounds you were hearing of the shots or the loud noises you heard?
Yes.
Now, ultimately, a code red was called, correct?
Yes.
But even before that, when the fire alarm went off, you did not allow your students to leave your classroom, did you?
No, well, that all happened right before the fire alarm. And when I saw that smoke, I started thinking that building's coming down, so I didn't let my kids go out at all. I made them all just stay in the classroom, and then there was a short amount of time after the fire alarm, and then somebody else came on screaming about the code red.
Do you recall, what do you mean somebody came on?
Somebody on the overhead, on
Like
the
in the
loudspeakers.
Okay. Did you recognize that voice as any assistant principal in particular?
I'm not sure.
So, if I understand correctly, while you were bending down, is that when the fire alarm goes off? If you recall.
The fire alarm went off, it was a little bit after. It was after I saw the smoke coming from that window, because the fire alarm went off like while I was starting to go back to my classroom anyway, and then I heard the fire alarm and the kids started getting up, and I had another teacher in the room, and we all kept everybody just in the room. Nobody went out.
So the order, and I don't mean to be complicated here, I'm just trying to get the order down.
And then shortly thereafter was the code red.
Okay. So just rewinding just a little bit. You go outside to see Xavier, because you hear a loud noise, correct?
Yes.
You see Xavier, he comes over and he says something to the effect of, "It wasn't me."
Mhm.
Is that yes? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Then you hear more noises, so you and Xavier both bend down.
I don't know if Xavier did.
Okay.
I think I was telling him to get in the classroom,
Okay.
so I don't remember exactly what he did.
Okay. So he ultimately ran back to the classroom.
Yeah, and I was here's the door. I was in front of the door, and he came down this way and went in, and I stayed there for a little bit by that wall
Okay.
before I went in.
And that's when you're bent down, peeking over. Fire alarm goes off. You then go to the classroom and tell everybody to stay inside.
Yes.
Did you do that to protect your students because something was going on?
Yeah, I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that if the building was coming down, there was no way I was gonna let them go out. But we were in there a long time. We knew everything by the time we left.
And did you mean students or yourself were receiving texts or other messages about what was going on?
Yes.
When you were back in your classroom, after you got back in, you could still hear loud noises, correct?
It was intermittent, yeah. It would start and then stop, and then start and then stop.
Could you tell it was the same type of sounds that you had heard when you were outside?
Yeah, I mean, we weren't sure, like, because we were starting to figure out what was going on, but then we were all just trying to figure out, like, how come it's still happening? Like, why isn't it stopping? What's going on? We didn't know.
I have nothing further for this witness, Your Honor.
Based on that, I need to read your rep.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
Just very briefly, Ms. Campbell. The puff of smoke that you saw, that was before the fire alarm went off, correct?
Yes.
So you never saw my client on the scene, correct?
No.
And after the fire alarm went off, did you get a chance to go back out and look at anything, or you were in your classroom?
Not until SWAT came to get us.
Okay. And did you ever figure out, like, how it is that you couldn't wrap your head around the sound coming from inside the 1200 building? Did you ever think about that?
It was just so loud and echoey, like everywhere. We just knew, you could tell it wasn't literally at the building, but you couldn't tell where it was just because it was so loud.
Okay, you mentioned echoey. That was
Yeah,
your word?
it would bounce, I guess the sound bounced off the buildings because it makes like a rectangular shape of buildings right there. So I guess that's what's happening, I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Campbell. I wish you the very best.
Based
Good
on
job.
any of that, any recross?
Yes, just very
Go
briefly.
ahead.
Ms. Campbell, you described it as echoey, correct?
Yes,
You still looked at the 1200 building at the windows, though, the direction of where?
yeah, I looked over the ledge, definitely.
And it drew your attention to the windows with the building spoke. So even with all this echo, you could kind of tell the vicinity of where the shots were coming. Or the noise was coming from.
Yeah, at that time I didn't know what it was, so I just looked over and then movement caught my eye, so.
And that corresponded with what you heard. Nothing further on.
Mr. Eilish, is witness excused?
Yes, sir.
And you may step down. Thank you very much. While she
Okay,
is doing
fire.
that, defense, you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Defense calls Tyler Jarboe.
All right, fair enough. Not sure what in particular we got out of that witness, except, same kind of ideas, noise coming from everywhere, echoey, loud. So similar stuff we've heard. But it's helpful to reinforce the point as the defense. Bring some witnesses, even if it's a little redundant at this point, because they're a little bit more favorable to you. So, yeah, that's fine. I'm checking out this neutral. This neutral. I turned off the YouTube audio volume booster app, and I turned on this YouTube audio compressor app. See if that helps with the audio issues. Maybe I'll run both. I don't know, but I thought I'd give that a shot. So we're trying this YouTube compressor app and seeing how that goes. So.
So if I could have you come all the way up here to the witness stand, please. Once you reach it, before you have a seat, if you can just stop and look at me, raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please be seated. And once you're seated, if I could just scoot that chair all the way up as far as it will go, can you please state your full name and spell your full name?
My name is Tyler Jarboe, Tyler Jarboe.
Mr. Agarsh, you may inquire.
Thank you. Mr. Jarboe, would you prefer that I call you Tyler or Mr. Jarboe?
Tyler is fine.
Tyler, okay, fair enough. Are you in school right now?
I just graduated in May.
And where'd you graduate from?
Florida Polytechnic University.
And what did you study?
Computer science and AI.
And were you a student at Marjory Stoneman Douglas ever?
I was.
Were you a student back on February 14th, 2018?
Yes, I was a junior.
And what class were you in when something unusual happened that day?
I was in Mr. Sanders' pre-calculus class.
And where is his class located?
It is in the building across from the 1200 building. I believe that is the 700 building.
Okay. Can I show you a photograph and see if you're able, and I'm not sure if your classroom's here, but if you could just take a look at this, and I'm showing you what has been marked as Defense Exhibit E. Are you able to see at least approximately where your classroom would be located?
It's not on this picture. It'd be on the other side of the building. That's all the way on the
Okay,
right
so
side.
it's further down here?
Well, it's on the side facing the courtyard. It's not on the side facing the 1200 building.
Got it. And is that, do you know if the football field is on the west side? Do you remember where the football field is located?
Yes.
Is your classroom closer to the west side,
It's closer to the east side.
closer to the east side of the 1200 building, correct?
Yes.
And were you on the first or second floor?
The second floor.
Now, before the fire alarm went off, do you remember what you were doing?
We were taking an exam, a quiz. We were taking some exam for that class.
And then did you hear the fire alarm go off?
Yes.
Tell us what happened.
So after the fire alarm went off, we did what we normally do for fire alarms and go out the door to the left and then go to the stairwell. That's on the east side.
And that stairwell, would that have been closest to the east or to the west?
To the east.
Okay. And what happened next?
So after we went over to the stairwell to the east, there was two gentlemen that walked up the stairs and was telling us that it wasn't a drill. But none of us knew what was happening. The teachers at the time were telling us to go back down the stairs for our normal fire drills. And that's when I looked over the edge and saw Scot Peterson.
How close were you to Scot Peterson?
I was right above him, probably no more than 5 to 10 feet.
Okay, and what do you see him doing?
He was just sitting there against the stairwell, unholstering his weapon.
Okay, you saw him.
I'm sorry.
He was just unholstering his weapon.
Thank you.
Okay. Had you heard any shots up to that point?
No, we have not heard anything.
All right. What happened next?
So after that, me and my teacher, after we looked over the edge, we then started to walk back to the classroom. He was ushering everybody.
I forgot to ask you one question. When you see him unholstering his weapon, do you see him looking in any particular direction?
He was looking towards the west side, which I believe is where the football field is.
Okay,
He was
so I'm
looking
looking
towards
down in that direction, correct?
Yes.
All right, and what happened next?
After we looked over the edge, we then were walking. Our teacher at the time told us to walk back to the classroom, and that's when we started to head back.
And then what happened?
As soon as we rounded the corner is when we heard about 3 to 4 shots.
And what did those sound like?
They sounded a lot like firecrackers. We didn't know what it was at the time, but it was just loud pops. And that's when, that's as we were going back to the classroom.
And how many did you hear about?
About 3 to 4.
Okay. And then what happened?
Then we just went back to the classroom and then hid in the corner.
All right. Let me go back to when you hear those pops.
Mhm.
Okay. How close would you estimate at that point you are to Scot Peterson?
I don't know the exact distance, but it's around 30 to 40 feet.
Okay. And when you heard those shots, where did you think that they were coming from?
So the stairwell that's on the west side of the 700 building, that's where it generally sounded it was coming from.
Okay.
But
So did you ever think that they were contained within a particular building?
no, I just knew the direction that it was coming from.
Did you
Yeah,
ever
please
say,
make sure to hit that
"Gosh,
like
there's
button if
shots
you haven't
being fired
already, and also
inside
please
the
retweet the
1200
pinned comment.
No,
It
I
does
just
make a
knew that it
huge
was coming
difference in
from
making sure
the
people
west
are
side
aware of this
stairwell.
channel, and we really do
And you
appreciate
thought
it.
it was the west side stairwell of the 700 building, correct?
I just knew it was coming from that direction. I didn't know where it was.
You've learned in retrospect that the shots were actually inside of the 1200 building, correct?
Yes.
Did you ever think back and wonder why it is that you thought that the shots were coming from west and outside?
I have not just thought about why it was coming from that side.
Have you ever had experience with echoes in that area?
It does echo quite a bit.
Explain for the jurors your experience about that.
I mean, it is a hallway outside. There's a lot of concrete that's around buildings. The walls are flat. Someone can drop a textbook and it will echo throughout. You can hear it pretty clearly throughout the hallway.
So before the shooting, you had experienced times where loud noise will take place and then you don't know where the noise is coming from, correct?
You know the direction where it's coming from, but you can't pinpoint its exact location.
Okay. I wish you the very best.
Thank you.
Cross-examination, go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. Tyler, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Not too bad. As I tell every witness, I speak pretty quickly. If you need me to slow down, just let me know, okay?
Okay.
Now, I want to show you a picture here on paper.
Sure.
I'll be right back, guys.
I'm going to use the overhead.
Yeah, can we have the screens on for this?
Yes, and with the annotator, Your Honor. Sure. Tyler, that screen is actually going to be interactive, so you can actually draw on it and circle things.
Okay.
Sir, do you see three little bars at the bottom of your screen?
Yes.
Just touch those.
Okay.
Tyler, do you recognize this aerial view?
Yes.
Can you just mark with a pencil on just where the 700 building is?
I think the pencil's on, right? So the 700 building would be this building right here.
Okay. Now, your class was on the south side, so facing kind of the courtyard.
Yes.
With the, I changed it. Oh, can you just mark with a circle where the courtyard is?
The courtyard is right here.
Okay. Now, where approximately was your classroom?
It was about right here-ish.
So when you leave that classroom, and if you want to maybe change it to a green or purple, just for clarification, just so it's easier. When you left the classroom on the fire drill, what route did you take?
So as we came out the classroom, we walked up here into the stairwell that's right there.
Now this stairwell right here, when you said that you looked over the edge, were you looking north over the ledge, or is it east or west? What direction were you looking over the edge?
Just north over the ledge.
Okay. So if you continue with that purple line up to kind of where that white part is, that's where the ledge is that you were looking over?
Yes.
Okay. And if you could, can you just mark with an X approximately where you saw Mr. Peterson?
I saw him right around here-ish.
Okay. And you said you saw him unholstering his gun?
Yeah, he was on the wall.
He was on the wall. Did you see him actually taking that out of the holster, or did he already have it in his hands?
It was very quickly that I looked over.
Okay, so that's actually my next question. For how long would you say you saw him? You can estimate this.
Probably no more than a second to a couple seconds.
Now, you said that he was facing, it looked like he was facing west towards the football field, right?
Yes.
Was his body facing west, or was it just his head?
I don't really remember.
Okay. And I know you just testified it was only a second, so if you don't know the answer to this, that's fine. But did it look like he was scanning, or did it look like he was intent, like focused on the west side?
I just saw him looking to the west side.
Okay, fair enough. Now, you're walking back, so basically just tracking back on the purple line that you already drew, you heard 3 to 4 shots.
Yes.
Had you ever heard a gunshot before in your life, in real life?
No.
And at that point in time, you were about 30 or 40 feet from Mr. Peterson?
About. I
Can
don't
you
know the
just
exact
change it to green for me? And once again, mark approximately where you were when you heard the shot.
I was about here-ish when I started to hear the shots.
So right at the corner.
Yes.
Now, you stated on direct examination by Mr. Ardbush that you knew the direction that it was coming from. Which direction was that?
It was coming from the west side stairwell. Do you want me to mark it on the?
Yeah, sure.
So it was about, I believe the stairwell is right here. So it sounded like it was coming from that direction.
And where, and I'm gonna zoom out a little bit, so I'm just gonna erase this. Or you have to actually erase it, I don't have control. Right. You know what, don't worry for a second, I'm just gonna zoom out. On this one, actually, I'm gonna show you, and for records, this is 17, I'm gonna show you states 1. Got it, I'm sorry, I got it. So I'm showing you it's already added to states 1. Zoom out a little bit. Looking at that photo, where's the senior lot?
The senior lot is at the north side.
You can mark it.
Okay, so the senior lot is here. It's that entire parking lot.
Did you at any time think the shots were coming from that direction, the senior lot?
I just knew it was coming from that area. I didn't know where it was. So in that direction, yes, but not. I didn't know if it was in the senior lot or not.
Okay, so earlier you marked, and you can just mark again if you will, the west stairwell on the 700 building.
So the west stairwell is here.
Okay, so it could have been from the west stairwell, but it also could have been from the senior lot.
Yeah.
Senior lot is north of you,
Yes.
and the building between you and the senior lot is the 1200 building.
Yes.
You mentioned on direct examination about the echoes in the hallway. And it was kind of like a known thing. And if someone dropped a textbook, you would kind of hear the echoes. Is that yes? I'm sorry, yes.
Oh, sorry, yes.
So it was widely known that hallways weren't necessarily the best place to stand if you're trying to determine where a sound came from, were they?
Yeah.
They would not be the best place.
They wouldn't be the best place, yes.
All right, any further questions? Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Is the witness excused?
He is.
All right, sir, you may step down. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
While he's doing that, defense, you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. We call Jeffrey Morford. Jeffrey Morford. Your Honor, you want to continue now?
Well, let the TV's off.
Yeah, I'm not going to use them.
all the way here to the witness stand, please. Once you reach it, before you have a seat, you can just stop and look at me. Raise your hand. You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth. Please be seated. So once you're seated, if I get you to scoot that chair all the way forward as far as it will go.
Okay.
Can you please state your full name and spell your full name?
Jeffrey Morford, Jeffrey Morford.
Mr. Aguilar, your name, please.
Thank you. Mr. Morford, are you currently working?
No, sir, I'm retired.
And what are you retired from?
I was assistant principal at Stoneman Douglas.
And how long were you in the school system?
I was in Broward schools 21 years, I believe, overall 33 years in public school.
And did you ever work for Marjory Stoneman Douglas?
For 6 years.
6 years? And during that time, did you ever have contact with Scot Peterson?
I did.
Tell the jurors what type of interaction you had with him.
I would interact with him daily. He would help me anytime I had issues with parents, students, anything in that nature. We even shared duties together, like lunchtime and things like that. So I spent a lot of time with him.
Your title was assistant principal, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what was his relationship like with the kids?
He had a good relationship. I felt like that we were able to stop some things from happening because kids had confidence to come and talk to him, to share things with him. And he had a good rapport with, I believe, administration, staff, and students.
Were there times, were there any fights on campus?
We had a few.
And did you ever see Scot Peterson get involved and try to stop those fights?
He would always jump in and help, always.
Were there times he would do that even without backup?
Correct.
Did you ever see any acts at all that would lead you to believe he was a coward in any way?
No, sir.
Objections to any of your
No, that's overruled, and he already answered the question. Go ahead, sir, ask your next question.
Sorry.
And if there were arrests that needed to be made at school, would you call upon Scot to investigate and make those arrests if necessary?
Correct.
On the day in question, do you recall the fire alarm going off?
I do.
And tell us what happened.
I remember I was in my office.
Where was that?
I was in the 100 building.
Okay.
And I went to Deputy Peterson's office. The fire alarm was in there, and someone was already in there working with it. So I remember I came back to my office, and eventually I went outside to start, helping with getting kids, with the fire alarm.
When you went into his office, was he in his office at that point?
I don't recall that. I don't recall that.
Okay. And then what happened next? What did you do?
Then I eventually went out to the hallway and started, getting kids. My area to take care of was right there by the main 100 building in the auditorium. So I went that way. I eventually ended up down toward the auditorium area, headed toward the 1200 building. I didn't get near that far down, but in that direction, and I eventually ran into Office Monitor Stobley, who informed me what was going on, and so I headed back to try to start, because kids were all coming down for the fire, thinking it was a fire drill, and so we were trying to get them in the auditorium and get them back up the stairs back to their classrooms.
Were you equipped with a school radio?
Yes, sir.
Do you know approximately how many people had a school radio?
A lot.
A lot. I mean, not just administrators,
No.
people like custodians, right?
Correct. All campus monitors, custodians, even some department heads. So there was a lot of radios on campus.
Okay. Do you always hear every transmission over the school radio?
No.
Tell the jurors how come you don't always hear every single transmission that's made over a school radio.
People can walk on top of each other. These weren't like real high-tech radios. So for instance, maybe if I was talking and someone pushed a button, they wouldn't even have to be talking. They could just push the button and it would cancel out, what I was saying. It's just a lot of different things could keep them from being where you hear everything.
Did you ever miss any transmissions during your 6 years, for example, at that school when you have divided attention? Like you're talking to someone or you're researching on your computer, anything like
Most
that?
definitely, and especially if I would have someone in my office, if I had a parent or a student, I would a lot of times turn my radio down. Just, I would, not off, but down, and so you could definitely miss things.
What is a code red?
Immediate danger, lockdown, you need to get to safety.
When someone orders a code red, whose benefit are they doing it for?
Staff, students,
And what are teachers instructed to do when a code red is ordered?
there to secure their room and secure their kids in the room.
That's if they can get into their room.
Correct.
So let's talk about when there's a fire alarm going off. Are teachers supposed to bring their keys outside of their classrooms?
Yes, they should secure their classroom when they're leaving for the fire drill. They should take their appropriate things with them and secure their door, and then be able to let the kids back in when they're finished.
Did there come a time where you heard someone order a code red on February 14, 2018?
Yes, I heard Deputy Peterson call code red.
Okay. And are you familiar with his voice?
I spoke with him daily.
How often, just so that they're clear? In the 6 years you were there, did you speak to him every day?
Daily.
Are
Sorry.
there times when you
daily.
speak to him more than once a day?
Most definitely.
Do you recognize his voice?
Most definitely.
When you heard him order a code red, was there any doubt in your mind he's the one who did so?
No doubt in my mind.
Now, as a result of him ordering a code red, did you do anything over the radio?
That's where, and I apologize, some of my dealing with all this, I've had some issues, and memory's been one of them, but I don't specifically remembering calling code red, but I know another assistant principal in his statement said he heard me call code red. So I don't, in the chaos of what happening, I don't remember it myself, but another person did in his statement say that he heard me call it.
But if you did order that code red, would it have been because my client ordered the code red?
100%, because I heard it from him first.
Was there a time that you went to the video room to review surveillance video?
Correct. After, like I said, I had met Coach Stobley and we were going back, and Deputy Peterson got on the radio and asked me to go to the camera room to try to locate what was going on.
Do you remember him telling you specifically to go to the camera room to try to locate the shooters?
Correct.
And would you have gone to the video room had he not told you that?
No, I probably would not have thought of that. I would just been trying to get kids in to safety.
And who did you go to the video room with?
Mr. Greenleaf, our security specialist.
And between you and him, who knows how to operate the equipment in the video room?
He does. I did not know how to operate it.
And while he was on the equipment, what were you doing?
I was on the radio. I was sitting beside him. He was like in an area like this where the computer screen was, and I was sitting like beside him.
And were you speaking with anyone on your school radio?
Deputy Peterson.
And how long did this go on, if you could give an estimate, just ballpark?
It wasn't like very briefly. We had to rewind the film, and then when we first rewound the film, it was like just smoky, like we couldn't really see much, and so we started back, and then I was on as we saw things, we were reporting it to him. So it wasn't like 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes. At least at that.
At least, so you can't give it a total ballpark.
I
but
can't.
At least 5 to 10 minutes.
Correct.
maybe much
I was
more.
on with him at least 5 to 10 minutes for sure.
Okay, but that's not your ballpark, right?
No,
You're
right.
saying that would be the minimum.
Correct.
Are you able to give like a maximum time?
I don't know. Everything was happening so fast. I don't know.
Was there ever a time during that, again, you called it a long process, right? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Was there ever a time that Deputy Peterson ever hang up or gave up on the process?
No. Never.
Did it seem like he was trying to find out in real time where the shooter or shooters were located?
Yes,
That was your purpose with him?
correct.
Did my client have any control over the video and where it was being rewound to?
No.
Preach
You
it,
did
Adam.
learn at some point
Preach it,
that
Adam.
Mr. Greenleaf didn't
Seconds
rewind
count,
it
even the
properly,
SRO
so
are
you
minutes
weren't
away. You
actually
preach it,
getting
baby.
the right information, correct?
We knew it was delayed, correct.
All right, so it was 4 minutes, not 40?
But whatever
Okay.
information that Greenleaf was giving
So
you,
I
you
just
were
misheard
relaying
the
that to my
prosecutor.
client, correct?
Correct.
Did you understand?
So
that he
that's
then
my
disseminated
bad.
that
I thought it was
information to
40.
those on the scene?
And it was apparently
That
4.
Deputy Peterson was?
Yes.
And we have
assumed
testimony
he
about him
was,
not doing
yes.
anything for 4 minutes. Okay.
That's all.
4 minutes is a pretty short amount of time. So that makes it even like, you know, yeah. Yeah, so we're saying he didn't do what he was supposed to do in 4 minutes. Yeah, 4 minutes is a pretty short amount of time.
Well, Ms. Morford, how are you doing?
So
Hello?
I tend
in
to
this
speak
environment,
quickly if you
in
need
this
me to
environment
slow
with the
down.
ricocheting sounds and the
You're
noise
fine.
of the fire alarm and the 3,000 students and being the only one there
But
and,
you would
you
categorize
know,
yourself as a friend.
At,
4
when we
minutes
were
is
in
a short
school
amount of
together,
time in context.
I would definitely consider him a friend.
Yeah, you had 4 minutes to react, but stood in the vicinity for 40 minutes? Okay, so now I'm confused as to the state's argument, I guess. I'm not even sure what the argument is now.
Deputy Peterson, your testimony has ordered or told you to go to the camera room, correct?
Correct.
And you're with Kelvin Greenleaf.
I wasn't with him at the time. I headed there, and I don't recall exactly where I ran into Kelvin, but
Yeah.
somewhere we
Right.
ran into each other.
We ran a 4-minute
and
mile, that's right.
We went into the main building.
And you said on direct that you have some memory issues related to this incident, correct?
Correct.
Is that because the trauma associated with it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you remember some things, you don't remember other things?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's why I tried to go back and look at some of my statements so I can remember things, because
Okay.
I have a lot of depositions.
Do you remember Mr. Peterson telling you over the, when you're in the video room to look directly or to look at the 1200 building?
I don't recall that.
Is it possible he told you that?
I don't recall it. Again, Mr. Greenleaf was the one that went in and got on the camera and got it going. I was there watching.
Uncivil law can run a
You were there
4-minute
watching
mile.
and relaying the information.
For varying definitions of 4 minutes and varying definitions of mile.
Now, you took part in code red drills, correct?
Correct.
The classes taught by school board employee,
Correct.
and Mr. Peterson was part of that?
I don't know.
You don't
I
know
mean,
he was part of it?
because we would have it in the auditorium, it would be big. Sometimes, because of things we'd have going on, as an administrator, I would be in and out of the meetings. I couldn't maybe sit there the whole time, so I honestly couldn't tell who was there, who was not there.
Typically with these meetings, though, the SRO, the head of the security on campus would be there, right?
1.5 miles in 1330? I'm not sure I could do that either, to be
You
honest.
testified on direct
I'd be
that,
lucky to do a mile on
Deputy Peterson,
1330 at my current health.
called the code red.
Then again, I'm not supposed to be in the
Isn't it true
Marines
that
right
Elliot
now.
Bonner is the first person to call code red?
I never heard Coach Bonner call code red.
Uncivil law. Marine for hire. I'm only 42 years old and untrained, but that's okay, guys.
Correct.
I've got it under control.
Organizing my notes here. Have you ever testified differently to that?
Not that, I tried to go back and look at all my depositions. So not that I'm aware of.
Not that you're aware of. Would it be anything that might refresh your recollection?
Possibly.
a sworn statement on August 22nd of 2018 to a Detective Bonasaro?
No, I don't remember.
Might something refresh your recollection?
Please.
May I approach?
Sure. So the point of the exercise is, just read whatever the document the lawyer wants you to read it to yourself, take your time. When you're done, if you look up, I'm sure the attorneys will have questions for you. What I don't want you to do is read out loud from the document. Just read it to yourself and see if that refreshes your memory, okay?
How far am I supposed to go? Saying that I don't remember.
You don't remember who called the code red? Back on August 22nd, 2018. I'll show you the date.
Correct.
Okay, so this happened in February 14th of 2018.
Right.
So this is approximately 6 months later, and you don't remember who called it.
Okay.
But today, as we're in a courtroom on June 21st, 2023, suddenly Mr. Peterson called the code red.
Correct. Well, again, I tried to go back and look at all my depositions, and I know in several of my depositions, I said that Deputy Peterson called code red. And that's, because of memory, I'm trying to go back and look at what I said, because the farther back to that date would have been, I believe, I would remember.
Would you agree that you would remember closer to the date that it happened than today?
Correct.
And the other depositions, do you recall when they happened? Approximately, I'm not going to hold you to the date.
I mean, I had 1, 2 days after the incident. I've had a lot.
Including up to April 26th of 2022?
Correct.
Now, you also called it code red, correct?
I don't remember, but another assistant principal said he heard me call it.
Now, with the school radio, as Mr. Eilish was asking, sometimes you heard transmissions, sometimes you would turn it down if you were in a parent meeting. Did you overhear Coach Weiss that day?
No, I did not.
Did you overhear campus monitor Medina that day?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, you gotta be careful, prosecutor, on this.
Now, you stated under direct that the fire alarm was in Mr. Peterson's office. What does that mean?
That's where we would turn it off.
So, the master switchboard is?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that's because he's the SRO, the head of the security.
I mean, I don't know why. It's just that's where it was.
Now, you described on direct examination that he had a good relationship with kids. He was like a mentor to them?
I think so.
You saw it. It was a different relationship. It was almost like a relationship that a student may have with a teacher or an administrator.
Correct.
Bullshit. Bullshit.
Now, you testified on direct that you headed towards the auditorium area. Why did you?
Well, they'll teach every
That's where
school
my-
resource
that's
officer
where my
from being
duty
nice to
is
kids
for
ever again.
fire
I'll tell you that.
Now, as you headed towards the auditorium.
Do they want school
area,
resource officers in Florida?
Building 1 that's heading north, kind of towards the 1200.
Do they want school resource officers? It's like, oh, okay. By taking on this job, you now suddenly have a duty to every single student in the school.
He told you what was going on.
Who wants to be a school resource officer in Florida anymore?
Again, I don't recall that at all.
Who wants to be a cop, period,
Now,
these
you
days, you
said
know?
that you were trying to get the kids back in the classroom. Is that correct?
After I saw Coach Stobley, correct.
And is that to
At
try
least
to
a
protect the
state
kids?
cop, you know, be a fed or something. They get better immunity.
Now, in code red drills.
If you're gonna go
what is
police,
the-
do
what is
federal
the assistant
police.
principal's job?
They've got lots of
Our
different
job
police
is to
forces.
seek
Do
shelter
fed.
and
For just you?
for everyone.
So you did your job.
I recommend either Secret Service
Was trying to, correct?
or Postal Inspector's good because their jurisdiction is the mail and it goes everywhere. So Postal Inspector's pretty cool.
Now, on direct examination, the question was asked about Mr. Greenleaf in the video, and that Mr. Greenleaf incorrectly did.
U.S. Marshals is kind of cool if you want some action.
I don't
Chase down some
know what
bad
you mean by
guys.
Incorrectly.
That was the word, that was the question that was asked. Did Kelvin Greenleaf do it incorrectly?
Okay, no, I'm saying that it wasn't live. We had to rewind it.
So Mr. Greenleaf did it properly, he just couldn't see what was on the screen. Could you see what was on the screen? Because you were watching videos, right?
Correct, not at the beginning, as I thought I stated, it was just all cloudy.
So it had to be rewound
Correct.
to see what happened.
Correct.
Secret Service is good for financial frauds. So if you want to do counterfeiting and financial frauds, the Secret Service is good for that. Of course, you want to do presidential protection detail, you can also do that aspect of Secret Service. Postal Inspector for the mail. I always thought working on counterfeiting for Secret Service would be kind of cool. I don't know why, but I just thought it'd be interesting.
I've tried to forget a lot.
Understood, I understand.
People don't realize what we went through that day.
So as you're asked questions today, you're basing a lot of it off the transcripts, the depositions, things of that nature.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a good independent recollection? What
Maybe I should
actually
become a postal inspector. You think it's too late for my fat ass to become a postal inspector?
I'm not sure I understand your
If
question.
you think about February 14th, 2018.
As long as I don't have to let go, arrest the bad guy, maybe.
What happened?
Or a detective.
Or is it just based upon what
Yeah.
you're reading, the sworn statements you previously gave?
I think it's a combination of both.
Open the door. Uncivil law. Got a warrant. Yeah, I think I'm aged out of the federal police force, yeah.
Don't have nothing further for Mr. Moore.
You may be ready.
No, you're not.
It's witness excused.
He is, thank
Right, sir, you may step down. Thank you very much. While he's doing that, ladies and gentlemen, a little quick restroom break, same admonition as always. Please do not discuss the facts of the case, the evidence, the witnesses, or the testimony until we reach the end of the case. I'll tell you when that is. If you leave the notepads in your chairs and step in the back one moment, I'll be right back with you. Thank you.
Are they taking a bathroom break? Because if they are, I'm making a smoothie because I'm still hungry. I haven't had anything since breakfast. I'm putting on smoothie. I'm putting on dream beats and we're listening to some music.
Okay, we're outside the presence of the jury. Real quick 5-minute restroom break. We'll be in recess
Great.
for 5 minutes.
It's just long enough for me to make a smoothie. Fantastic. Great. Okay, so let's see. All right, text. Taking a short break, enjoying some stream beats. Fantastic. Let's put it on. yogurt, some protein powder, a little bit of berry. Simple. Clock, seal, and chandelier. Yeah, we didn't know how spoiled we were, did we? Need to get some protein in my belly so I can do a workout today. Want to go to the gym today. Need a little energy. My improv class last night was really good. For those of you not keeping track, I started doing a second improv class. It was narrative 1, narrative level 1. And the idea is to do an improv play. And an hour into our instruction, our teacher said, okay, we're now going to do an improv play. So it's the first time I've met any of these people, the first time any of them have met me, the first time any of us have done this. And like, okay, we want you to go improv a play. And it actually turned out pretty good. It actually turned out pretty good. I was pleasantly surprised with how well we were able to put it together. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't bad at all. It was pretty good. I thought it was a solid effort. So I was pleasantly surprised by how well, with basically no training, we were able to do an improv play. Too loud? Yeah, so we're just doing an improv play. Yeah, because I have my audio set for the court. That's right. I keep forgetting. I have my audio set for the court level. Yeah, don't eat a lot of protein. It's not a lot. It's just a single scoop of casein protein. I always like casein because it digests slower. This is a whey. Because whey protein spikes. I always use casein protein. I'm part of the casein protein crew. I never use whey. So I like the slower digesting stuff so it doesn't, interfere as much with stuff. But just a simple scoop of protein powder. And a little Fage yogurt and a cup of berry. Just go full bodybuilding, lit, eat like a monster. Then when you gain your desired mass, I'll help you shred water and fat a lot faster than just working out now. I don't know. I think I'm doing something that's working for me. And I'm making progress. And, I'm having fun and, so I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing for the foreseeable future. And keep just trying to add to the weights where I can. And, when I hit a limit, maybe I'll change things up, but I don't see anything reason to change things up right now. I need to go 3 improv classes a week, rule 3, maybe. The improv class went surprisingly well.
I continue to have Ms. Gomes, Mr. Killer, and Mr. Klinger present for the state. I continue to have Mr. Eiglash present with Mr. Peterson, who likewise is present. We are outside the presence of the jury. State, anything you need me to address before we resume with the defense presentation?
Beef protein isolate, maybe. I use Optimum Nutrition's casein,
How many more witnesses?
which is pretty good value for money and has a pretty good reputation as a brand. So is it optimal? I mean, it's Optimum Nutrition. But yeah, I use Optimum Nutrition casein. It's good as a brand, has a good reputation. I'll just stick with that for the foreseeable future. Again, maybe when I max out my current capabilities, and maybe when I max out my current abilities, and I'm looking to take my gains to the next level, maybe then I'll look into the beef protein isolate and the other things. But I think for now, we're doing fine. So we'll just stick to the plan until we reach a limit. and then we'll reconsider a new plan.
The jurors tomorrow morning off, tell them to eat lunch on their own and come back at 12, resume at 12:30 tomorrow.
That's fine.
Any objection to doing it that way?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
What's my goal with lifting? Increasing the numbers. Making number go up. That's my goal. Lift more.
We will finish
More weight.
so we will have the normal 1 hour.
Number go up.
Hey, Judge. No, I'm in trial. I'm in, yeah.
Becoming Swole Law so I can change the name of this channel. Become Swole Law. We're a long way away from a name change of the channel, but maybe someday. 5x5, I've done 5x5 before. I've done 5x5 before. I'm working with a coach right now who's got me on a plan, and I'm going to stick with that. I have a plan. The plan is working. We're sticking with the plan. Your continuing support as I continue on the plan, which I will do no matter what you say, it's appreciated. When we reach the limits of this plan, maybe I'll consult you for a new plan. But until then, we're on this plan. This is the way we're doing it. End of discussion. Yeah. I'll tell you what I'm doing. And you can mutter to yourself, oh, that's not the best way to do it. Don't do it that way.
Jurors entering.
As a side note, I have a generalized belief that people who are really into fitness and experienced with fitness have a tendency to
Ladies and gentlemen, once you are back
not
to
be
this,
very
please
accommodating when it comes to
all parties
novices and new people. They tend to want to shoot for the optimum rather than
Ladies and
just
gentlemen,
a
those
thing
of
that
you
works.
using the notepad, I will give you a moment to get the
And
notepad
I
back
find
out.
that to be true, just generally speaking. It's like the optimum is 5x5. The optimum is this. Like, dude, if they're doing machines, it's a thing.
Resume at that point.
Well, you know, let them get started before we, like, you
Thank you,
know,
Your Honor.
be like,
The
that's
defense
not the
next
perfect
calls
way.
Melanie Weber.
Not optimum for the
Melanie Weber.
gains. It doesn't have to be perfect. Something is better than nothing. Stick with what we got. We'll go from there. Here's a secret. I use a bench press machine sometimes. Oh no. I'm going to be cast out of this. I'm going to be cast out of the Swole Lifters Club. You use a bench press machine?
Stand, please. Once you reach it, but before you have a seat, you can just stop and look at me. Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Please be seated. Once you are seated, if I can get you to scoot that chair forward as far as it will go, can you please state your full name and spell your full name?
Yes, Melanie Weber, MELANIEWEBER.
Spell your last name one more time.
1B.
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 Yes.
Understood. Mr. Igosh, you may inquire.
Do you prefer that I call you Melanie or Miss Weber?
Melanie is fine.
Okay, Melanie. Do you work? Are you in school?
I just graduated from Florida State.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And what was your major?
Biology.
And what are you studying to become?
I just applied to med school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you ever attend Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School?
Yes.
Back on February 14, 2018, day of the shooting, what class were you in?
I was in Miss Hertzfeld's drama class,
Okay. What building is that in?
the 700 building.
Okay. Let me show you a photograph of a.
I couldn't do a sprint right now to save my life. I'm doing a little cardio using a bike or elliptical. And that's about as much as we can do right now.
I can't
Sprinting, walking, or any sort of plyo or body weight is completely out of the question.
So it's to the.
We can lift and we can do non-impact cardio. That's what we can do.
Would it be
That's
right
what we're
the other
doing.
side of this pole? Is
Yes,
that another way to
yes,
say it?
that's the door.
Okay. That's on the first floor, correct?
Yes.
And what kind of class was Miss Hertzfield's?
It was a drama class.
And were you one of the ones participating in that musical they had going there?
Yes.
All right. And then what happens next?
So we were rehearsing for our spring show, and then the fire alarm went off. And so me and a bunch of my friends in the drama room responded to it like we would any other fire alarm, and we walked outside in response to it going off.
And if you can show us on that same photograph what your path was.
Yeah, I think I'm doing well. I think I'm doing real well. I'm posting a lot of workouts. The numbers look real good to me.
Walked out the door and started
I'm happy.
crossing this patch of grass kind of diagonally over to the
You
parking
know,
lot.
I think it's
where
going
we
pretty
should
well.
gather, for fire drills.
Show the
I think it's
jurors where
even
the
beginning to
1200
show in my
building is.
face a little
Right
bit.
here.
Okay.
This building.
So is your
I'm
classroom
happy.
facing the 1200 building?
Yes.
Are you right across from the 1200 building?
Yes.
And
I don't know what a gravity
what
treadmill
happens next
is.
as you're walking?
As we were
It's a gravity
walking,
treadmill.
I want to say we were right in the middle
Oh,
of
I
this
know what you
grass
mean.
patch. That's when we heard the gunshots.
I don't think my gym has
And
one.
how many did you hear?
Around 7.
Did you recognize them as gunshots right away?
No.
My gym has every piece of equipment known to
At
man.
first,
but I'm not sure they have a
I
gravity
thought that
treadmill.
they were firecrackers or some kind of explosive.
And what did you do in response?
We immediately turned around and ran back into our classroom.
And how were you feeling?
They have a
at that
squat machine,
Scared.
which kicks ass.
moment? And
Because it means I don't have to
when you
load
heard
and
the
deload the bar,
shots,
and
as
also
you
it's a lot
indicated,
safer.
Between the 12 and the
I've never
700
seen a
building,
squat
were you
machine before,
identified?
but I love it. It's the greatest thing ever invented.
Where did you think that they were coming from?
Since it was so loud and the sound was echoing and like reverberating off of all the buildings, I initially thought that they were coming from the soccer field.
Okay. Let me show you what is marked as Defense Exhibit F. Can you show the jurors if this is the 1200 building and this is the 700 building?
Yes.
Where would the soccer field be?
Over there.
Okay. Is a soccer field also used as a football field?
Yes.
Okay. Now, that area is very, very west
Okay, yeah.
of the 1200 building, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that a yes?
Yeah.
That noise
Yes.
you can't take.
Sorry. Yes.
And did you ever think
Oh yeah,
that
I'm
the
not.
shots that
I've
were
never seen. I've never even
contained
seen an
inside a
anti-grav
particular
treadmill in the
building?
real world.
No.
Yeah, I've never. I even had something different in mind. Yeah, I've never
Did you
seen
ever
one.
think that those shots?
I've been googling it behind the scenes.
No.
And did you ever see my client on the scene?
I believe I did.
Okay. And do you remember anything about seeing him there?
Yes, and I don't know if my memory is 100% accurate, but I remember when I walked out into the patch of grass in between the freshman building and the 700 building, I saw him kind of on the side of the freshman building facing the parking lot. I believe there might have been a golf cart that he was getting out of, and it seemed like he was, I don't know.
Yeah,
running
this
towards it
squat
and
machine is
something like
perhaps
that.
different than the one you're thinking of. This squat machine actually has
I feel like I remember him
like the plates that you put the
I don't
pin
know,
in,
maybe, I don't know, he had like a
as
gun
opposed to
or big
putting
reach
the
for it or something like
free
that.
weight
I
plates
don't
on
know.
them.
My memory isn't.
'Cause when I say squat machine, you're
So-
probably
You believe
thinking
you might have
you
seen
put the
him
free
use
weight
the
plates
gun,
on
but
them,
you're not
right?
Yeah.
This one actually has
And you had mentioned
a cable
the word echo,
that has a
echoey,
weight
is that
stack,
what
and you put the
said?
pin in
Yes.
the
Okay,
selector,
Tell us what you mean by that.
which I've never seen one of those before. But it kicks ass.
And I was just echoing.
Had you experienced that before the shooting ever, where you hear a loud sound in that area and you're not sure where the sound is coming from?
No, I don't think so.
They also have the traditional ones with the
But on the
plates.
day in question, you described it as echoey, correct?
Yes.
And can you describe the configuration of the buildings which might cause that?
All of the buildings at Stoneman Douglas are kind of, Stoneman Douglas, even though it's made up of multiple buildings, it is just kind of like a big square. So there are a lot of courtyards and a lot of, I don't know, walls that sounds could just bounce off of, because especially in the patch of grass where I was right in between two buildings, then there are more buildings over here. So it's just, an area where the noise can bounce off.
Got it. I thank you very much and good luck with that school.
Yeah, thank you.
Cross-examination, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. How you doing, Melanie?
I'm good, how are you?
Not too bad. I tend to
Blue
speak
discs in your
quickly.
back. Oh my God.
Okay.
Dear shit, dude.
Show you a
Oof.
picture.
Yeesh.
Melanie, I'm showing you what's already in evidence. It states 17.
That doesn't sound good at all.
And your screen is actually interactive, Your Honor. Can we please put on the annotator? So what that means with
This
the
can
pencil.
go to everybody.
Yes, sir. You can mark when I ask certain questions. You can actually
Okay.
use the pencil function.
I think my squat machine only goes up to like 400 with the pins. And since we haven't hit that number, it's a little bit irrelevant at the moment.
So I know that Mr. Eigler showed you a picture of where your classroom was. Looking from the aerial, do you recognize where the 700 building is?
Yeah.
I
can
hit
draw it?
400 on the leg
Okay,
press.
is it this one right here? Ooh,
Okay.
that right
I
there?
hit 400 on the
Now,
leg press machine with the weight stack, which was the most that that machine supports. So I was like, well, can't do leg press anymore since we've reached the limits of the machine.
Right.
We'll have to do something else. So squats.
And when you came out of the classroom, if you could just maybe change colors, whatever color you want, see on the bottom.
Okay.
What was the track? Like, where did you go?
Okay, is this sidewalk in the middle new? Because,
I'd love to
okay,
bench for
okay,
a
just because
plate. That
I'm
would be
kind of
so
confused
cool.
by the image,
I don't know if
because
that
I
was
just remember this
possible
all being
anymore,
grass.
especially because I'm
Do you
old.
remember the
But I'd
1200
love to be able to bench
Yes.
for a plate.
Do you see the 1200 building?
Yes, okay.
So looking at, well, let me show you. I think the one that Mark showed you. I just knocked the evidence over. Do you
What's
see
that, 405?
Okay, yeah, sorry, that
Combined
wasn't there when I
weight
went to
for a
school
full
there, so I
plate?
was just confused by the image. Okay, yeah, so I probably
405 bench is pretty
walked
badass.
out here and got to.
I'd love to be able to bench 405. That'd be cool. Maybe someday. Maybe someday.
So you got to about there. Where, and if you could mark just with an X, approximately where was Mr. Peterson when you saw him?
I want to say around here.
Did you see him on the concrete area there?
I can't remember if he was on the concrete or on the grass, but I definitely remember him being in this general vicinity.
Okay. Going back to the concrete, you said it wasn't there when you were at MSD. Are you sure about that? Do you remember that?
I don't know. It was 5 years ago. I mean, this sidewalk was definitely here, but this concrete cutting through the grass here, I don't know if I remember
Only
that.
like
Okay.
200
It could
plus
possibly-
pounds to go, guys. You know.
It's possible it could have been there. I'm asking, is it possible?
Possible that I saw
I think
him.
my best
No, I'm
bench
just
of
asking
all
about the
time was like
concrete.
250.
Is it
Oh, it's possible.
close
Yeah,
to
I
that. Maybe it's
just
a
don't
little bit
100%
more,
remember.
but not by much.
Because you said earlier on direct examination from Mr. Eigloss, your memory is not exactly 100%. It happened a long time ago, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you come out, you're following the line up there, and that's when you heard the noises, correct?
Yes,
How loud were they?
they were very, very loud. I had never heard gunshots before, so
That was my next question.
yeah, it was very loud. At first, I thought that something was exploding.
Okay. Soon as you heard those shots, did you immediately turn around and run back to Ms. Hertzfeld's class?
It's interesting that you asked that because according to my memory, I think I was in shock at first trying to figure out what was going on, because if someone was lighting firecrackers, and that's what or like explosives, and that was what I initially thought. I don't know. I was just trying to take in my surroundings and figure out what was going on. I feel like I remember pausing and being like, what was that? And then saying to myself, I probably should run back into the classroom. But when I watched a recording, the surveillance footage, it seemed like I turned around immediately and ran back. So
Okay.
I'm not sure.
So, well, let me ask you this then. Was your concern when you heard that sound of let me get back to the classroom as quickly as possible? Was it your safety? Was that your first thought?
Yeah, yes.
Was it, let me look around?
Well, thank you,
and see exactly
Captain. I'll
where
try
this
to
is coming from?
keep
No.
that in mind.
Were you focused on the 1200 building, for instance? Or are the shots coming out of there?
No, no, not specifically.
I assume that Lee Priest is currently in a fitness
Now, at some
category
point in time, did
well
you see,
beyond me.
another, person
So
standing next
what
to you?
works for him probably won't work for me right
Yes,
now.
I
but
did see another person.
maybe someday. Maybe someday.
I think Mr. Greenleaf.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you at any point in time see Mr. Greenleaf waving the students back into the 700?
Yes, I did. That was when I was walking out before I heard the gunshots. I saw him waving at us, and I kind of stopped in my tracks because I was like, "Why is he waving at us?" And that was when I heard the gunshots.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're walking out, you see Mr. Greenleaf waving, gunshots.
Also reminds me of the guy who did
Yes, that's correct.
Fit the Fat to Fit, where he because to better understand his clients, he purposefully overate till he was significantly overweight. I forget what that was, and then earned it all back off.
And you said
It's
you
like, I understand
heard
my clients.
you
I'm like, I'm
wanted
not
to be
100% sure you
7
did.
Around
I mean, yes,
that.
you were eating way too
number.
much and you gained a lot of weight and you
More than
understood how
2 or
that
3?
felt, but you still
Yeah.
had underlying fitness in you because you're like a fitness guy, right? So you hadn't been in a decrepit state
When
for
you turned
years.
around
So
to run
not
back
sure
to
your
the
experience
700,
necessarily
you
maps onto your client, but
also
okay.
running back in that direction?
Drew
Yes.
Manning, I
And
think
then
his name is.
Running away from the 1200 building? The direction of the 1200 building?
Yeah, running away from the direction of the 1200 building.
You testified on direct examination that you saw, you believe you saw Mr. Peterson kind of on the side of the building where you marked the X.
Yes,
Which way was he facing when you saw him?
he was facing the freshman building.
And you said he might have had his gun.
Yes.
No.
Did that cause?
Like,
you-
I overate, so I'm 50 pounds overweight now.
I honestly
understand what it's like to be fat.
No.
Yeah.
Because I think I saw Mr. Greenleaf waving before I noticed,
I'm not beyond liposuction, I'll tell you
yeah,
what.
before I noticed that.
So was
Maybe
your
I should start a
intention
GoFundMe. Let's liposuck
Yes,
him so
yes.
fat out of my
wait for
ass.
Mr. Peterson, then heard the loud noise?
Yes.
So it happened very rapidly?
Yes, that sounds like the accurate sequence of events.
Okay. All right, nothing further for this witness.
Thank you.
Based on that, and you redirect.
Yes, sir. Just
Go ahead.
questions. Just a few questions. On cross-examination, you said your memory's not 100% on all details, right?
Yes.
Because it happened 5 years ago, correct?
Yes.
This was very traumatic for you, correct?
Yes.
Did you give a statement to anybody many years ago?
You don't think I'm far enough
like
gone
an
for
official
lipo? I think you're
statement?
wrong.
Did anybody come and give you a statement and find out what you knew?
Do you know what my BMI
No.
is? Should
Well,
I tell you?
Yeah. I did talk to people in
It's
the
probably higher
in the
than you think it
office,
is.
But I don't think that was an official statement.
Yeah, I'm referring to somebody like law enforcement sitting you down and saying, tell us what you know. Do you remember that?
Okay, yeah, that did happen.
Okay, many years ago, correct?
Yes.
Closer to the incident, correct?
It was in the fall of my senior year, so 6 months after the incident, roughly.
Okay. And while you say your memory isn't 100% on certain details, is it 100% on hearing what you thought was firecrackers?
Yes.
Is it 100% on hearing what you thought were firecrackers coming from the soccer field?
Yes.
Is it 100% on hearing what you thought were firecrackers from outside?
Yes.
And was it 100% in your mind not coming from the 1200 building?
Yes. Yeah. I thought they were coming from everywhere. I really didn't know.
Everywhere,
Yeah.
correct? Thank you.
Based on that, and you recross.
Just one clarification.
Go ahead.
When I was asking you a question, you called it the freshman building. Is the freshman building and the 1200 building the same building?
Yes, the freshman building is a nickname.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay, is the witness excused?
Yes, thank you.
You may step
Thank you.
down. Thank you very much. While she's doing that, defense, you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defense next calls Deputy Brian Miller. Deputy Brian.
I'm really
Miller.
like concerned about like any permanent surgery, like a lap band or anything like that, or gastric bypass or stuff like that. I don't want to do anything like that. Really, I don't want to make permanent changes if I can avoid it. Liposuction, just sucking the fat out seems fine. I'll do that. Yeah, I know that athletes can be overclassified by BMI. I don't think that's particularly my problem. I don't think that I'm in the BMI is misleading category. I'm pretty sure I'm yeah, no.
Sir, if I could have you come all the way up here to the witness stand, please. Yes, sir. Once you reach it, but before you have a seat, you can stop and look at me, please. Yes, sir. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
Please be seated.
Thank you.
I'm like
You are seated. If I can get you to scoot that chair all the way forward.
200 pounds over
Yes, sir.
my ideal
Please
weight.
state your full name and spell your full name.
Brian Miller, B-R-I-A-N.
Good afternoon, Mr. Miller. How are you employed?
I'm sorry, sir.
How are you employed, sir?
I'm a sergeant with the Broward Sheriff's Office.
Okay. And how long have you been a sergeant with the Broward Sheriff's Office?
I was promoted in 2004.
2004. And when did you start with the Broward Sheriff's Office?
1986.
I know I don't look it. I hide my weight better than some people.
A little over 36 years.
I know I don't look
And
it.
where are you assigned to today?
Central Broward.
And as a sergeant assigned to Central Broward, do you supervise any other officers?
Not at this time, no.
A pound is 2.1
And-
kilograms.
I want to take you
Or is
back
it the other way
to
around?
February 14, 2018. Do you remember learning that there was something going on?
2.1
at
pounds per
Stoneman?
kilogram?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
it's the other way around.
What drew your
So
attention?
kilograms are about
A
half
radio
pounds.
call came
Yeah,
over
that's right.
by Deputy Peterson
So,
about
yeah.
shots fired.
So 200 pounds is about
Hostile
100
fireworks.
kilograms, give or take.
We heard that, and that's when I started
Something like that.
responding.
Okay. So what caused you to go to the school was hearing my client make an announcement over the radio, correct?
Yes, sir.
You had no plans of going
2.2?
to that school.
That was
but for his
2.1.
announcement,
Close
is that
enough.
correct?
Yes, sir.
And do you go alone or with someone?
I was by myself.
And
I
what
mean, there was
happened-
other cars leaving the station at the same time.
Okay, and what happened next?
I was I was going lights and siren, which we refer to as code.
A stone is 14
Deputy
pounds.
Peterson then started closing off like a perimeter of the area, not wanting vehicular traffic or pedestrians. And since Parkland has 4 cars, 5 cars normally, as a sergeant, I normally take perimeter spots for such things. So as I was crossing the main road, I slammed on my brakes to try to keep the cars, because I had cars behind me that were normal people, not law enforcement.
Let me ask you, reporting shots fired or even possible shots fired as soon as you hear them, is that what you're trained to do?
Yes. I mean, as soon as you hear it, yeah, you call it out.
Is there ever a training where they told you, sit on it and wait and not report it right away?
No, sir.
And so,
I'm not a red coat. I
Tell us
just,
what happened next.
read
As
And
I was pulling
educated.
up, I heard several shots.
and I know things.
My window was open, I stopped. It appeared to come from the football field, from the sound that I heard.
let me just take it one step at a time.
Sure.
Had you stopped your vehicle before you heard the shots?
I don't recall if I was still moving or stopped completely.
Okay. And where were you located when you heard the shots?
My car was going on the westbound side. If you were to look at the school, there are gates. One, it would have been where the lock gate for the parking lot is.
Okay. And would you be able to identify it on a map?
Yes, sir.
I'll put you on the spot, but you think you might be able to do so?
Yes, sir.
Be careful using stone terminology in Texas. No one in America knows what a stone is.
Defense Exhibit F.
No one in America has ever heard the term
that.
stone. I know it because I read.
I'm sorry. This is.
No one would have the
just
first
take a
damn
look at
clue
it.
what
Let
I'm
me know if
talking
you can
about.
Kind of identify where it was that you were,
Yes.
heard shots.
I'd be lucky
Okay,
if they
can
heard
you
what a
tell us where you
kilogram
were?
is. Are you kidding me?
I was coming here, and this is where I stopped.
Okay, so to the right of the D in Holmberg Road, is that what you're
Yes, sir.
pointing to?
Yes,
Okay,
in that area.
and that would have put you north of the 1200 building?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. How many shots did you hear initially?
I don't remember. Several. Could be 3. I don't.
And could you tell where they were coming from?
I thought it was the football field.
And just so we're clear, if you can take a look at this again, where is the football field as you're relating it?
Here.
Somewhere over there.
Yes.
Okay. Did you believe that those shots were contained within a particular building or in an open area?
I couldn't tell. It was reverberating off the sound, and I couldn't tell where it just sounded to the west, and that's,
Your word was reverberating, easy
Yes,
for
sir.
you to say. Yeah.
yes.
Okay. And what's the next thing that you did?
From when I started the shots, I went to the back of my vehicle, to the right passenger. That's where my vest was. I put on my vest. I took out my gun. I was trying to scan to see. At this point, I didn't hear any more shots. I was asking Deputy Seward,
We might be a little bit
Seward,
off topic, Jen, if it's
SCW,
true.
who recently passed
Some
away.
of that's my
He
fault.
passed away, but anyways, he was there, and I said,
Might as well talk
"Where
about
did you
something
hear the
interesting."
sounds?" And he pointed towards the football field as well.
Okay, so he corroborated your thought process that these shots were coming from the football field, correct?
Yes, and then we heard stuff on the radio that made us even more so.
Made you even what?
Believe so, more so because Deputy Kratz, I believe it was, that called out that there was shots fired, and he was in the football field.
Okay, so let me just step back. Were you monitoring your radio on the way to Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School?
Yes,
And based upon that, did you have any real-time intelligence of precisely where the shooter or shooters were located?
no,
You are aware that BSO operates on a separate system than Coral Springs,
yes,
correct?
sir.
Did you later come to learn that these radios were not patched with each other?
I don't recall. I don't remember us ever being on the same channel with them, if that's what you're asking, I'm sorry.
Okay. And when you get to the scene, did you know whether you were looking for one shooter, 2 shooters, multiple shooters?
No, we did not have that information.
Are you trained that unless you have information telling you otherwise, to believe that there could be multiple shooters on
I like
campus?
Unless you have
Taskmaster.
information, otherwise you don't
I
know.
like QI.
And even though you thought the
I
the
like,
sounds were coming from the football field, do you say, okay, there must be just one
Would
shooter
I
on the
lie to
football
you?
field?
No, sir.
Tell the
I
jurors what
like,
you were thinking in real time.
Well, you're an
Only
overlord.
Connect.
You believe that's what it is, and then I
Victoria
heard that there
Scott,
was a shooting victim
Victoria
in
Cohen
the
Michael
football
was a
field as
hottie.
well. That's, again, just reaffirming
like-
my belief.
When you arrive, do you just start running towards the football field or not?
No,
Countdown's
I've
okay
blocked the traffic.
sometimes.
I have, like I said, cars behind me.
8 out of 10 cats is okay
I
sometimes.
have, Deputy Hanks approaching, he's,
Top
because
Gear.
of the traffic backup, he's
I watched
going on
every
foot,
episode of Top
and
Gear when
I'm
Jeremy
going to
Clarkson
him
was
to
still
go
on there.
further ahead of me where I see
All of them.
Goolsby
Multiple times.
and I think Perry, and I can't believe who the other ones were already going inside the building, or not, sorry, not the building, the gate was approaching they were towards the west of me.
I just want to make sure we heard you correctly. You didn't see them going into any particular building. You were
No,
talking
no,
about the
sir,
gate.
no, they were going through the gate and it appeared, in my observation from, again, where I'm at, it appeared they were going towards the football field.
And were you
I don't know that I have a
continuously
favorite cut of
trying to
steak. I
monitor
guess
your
my favorite
police
way, I guess my
radio
favorite
to
steak is
gather
prime
more
rib.
real-time intelligence?
Good prime rib is probably my
Of course,
favorite.
you monitor it all the time. I was trying to transmit to Hanks and my radio wasn't working.
Tell the jurors about that. What was wrong with your radio that day?
When you key up, it would like make a sound like bonk, bonk, but as you were keying,
What is keying? Tell the jurors
when
what
you
keying is.
press the mic to talk.
Oh, and
into
someone
it for
recommended a
someone to
show
hear, it would
recently.
make it
They
tone.
recommended,
But it would not only do you can't talk, you
Hold
can't
on.
hear with it going over.
I got it in my notes
They
somewhere.
refer to as throttling, but I don't,
Mm.
for the fact, I can't tell you if that's the term, that's what the term I was told it was. But it wasn't working. I mean, I would
Ashes
key
to
up multiple
Ashes,
times,
Life on
and then
Mars,
occasionally it would work, and
and
if you
Jack
didn't speak
D.
when that time it did work,
There was another one I saw
you would go
recently
back
that was
to
like
it,
a period
just
drama
doing that again.
about a, I don't
Right
remember the
after you
name
got
of
out
it, but
your
it was
vehicle,
about
did you
a
put your vest on?
a
When I
mafia-like
went, yes, I went
gang
around to where my vest wasn't put on.
that was in
And
Britain,
did you take a tactical position
I think
of
just
cover?
before World
Yes, I
War
was on
One.
my vehicle.
Explain to the jurors.
I saw
are
some
you
clips of
trained
that
to do
recently. It
that?
looked
Yeah,
interesting.
if, at this point, you don't know where the shooter is. I took a position of cover behind my vehicle and looked and to see where, if I could see where the shooting was coming from. But he never fired again, so I didn't.
Peaky Blinders, that sounds
Are
right.
you trained to have to wait till gunfire is coming right at you with certainty before you're taking a position of cover?
No, I did it immediately. Well, I was putting on my vest, so also. I
And
wasn't gonna stand up and do it with, in the open.
And that's how they train you to do that, correct?
Yes, we're trained for cover. We practice shooting behind
That
cover.
looked
and
interesting. I thought I might give that a shot.
Okay. And tell us how you're feeling. This is not, I mean, we're all calm in this courtroom, right? How are you feeling today?
Oh, yes.
How does how you're feeling today differ from how you were feeling when you're on that scene?
Oh, your heart's pumping. You're overwhelmed. It's a lot. You're trying to take in a lot.
And does that affect your ability to perceive things and perform effectively?
Doctor Who massively overrated.
As far as
I've seen a couple
physically or
Doctor Who
mentally?
shows, and I'm
Whatever.
like,
I'm just curious how
this
it
is
affected
stupid.
you. We're hearing, I just want to know how
so
you're
I mean, it was.
I know there's some people who are
No,
really
I
love
mean,
Doctor Who, but I am not one
I don't
of
know
them.
what to
I'm
say.
like,
I mean,
this
we
is all
were
dumb.
doing what we were doing.
Okay. And
So there's my controversial
what
take for the
happened,
day.
what happened next?
Doctor Who
You
sucks.
believe that it's coming from the football field,
Yes.
and then what else do you do?
All right. I tried to speak to Hank.
Clarkson's Farm.
I
I've seen
told
some
Seward
episodes of that. That's
see
been
if he
cool.
could get on the radio. I didn't know if it was
Yeah.
my radio failing individually to see if he could get more units to the block where we were at. So we were able. I was calling for a helicopter. I was calling for K9. I had Coral Springs Police Department arriving to my location where I was at.
Where did you want K-9 and helicopter to go to?
To my location. 'Cause
I've
as
never
soon as
watched
we
anyone
found out
Doctor. I've just seen a couple
where we
different
could
episodes
track,
scattered
I
here
would
and
then
there.
start from there. 'Cause since we've started a perimeter setup,
I maybe seen like
that would be the next
5
thing. Since he's
episodes
in
of
the
the
football
show.
field, we would be
Every one of them
tracking
like.
that direction.
Okay. And other than you, do you recall who else was taking positions of cover by the football field?
As far as cover, I couldn't, no, Seward was with me. But as far down.
It's a bad
I
show,
could
and
see
all
the
you
officer
British
was
people
going
should
in.
feel
I didn't
bad.
see at that point, anybody on cover.
Did there come a time when you were on scene that you learned that Coral Springs Police Department was getting different information than BSO?
Yeah, I found that out later, not during it, no. They came up and asked me about cutting a gate.
Okay.
About what?
Cutting a gate,
Thank you.
a lock on a gate, I'm sorry.
And what happened next? What is the next thing that you did?
I tell them that where my guys are going in.
Thank
so
you,
we don't have
Ann
an
Bell
issue.
Feinstein, for
I said
19
there's a
months of
gap
membership.
between the buildings
I missed your question.
in front
I'm
of the
sorry,
gate they were
Doc.
cutting, and I direct
Court.
You can't
Yes, we'll do
communicate
Supreme
back and
Court
forth.
if
It's
the
a problem,
court
it's a
is late
safety issue.
tomorrow.
And, you can't warn.
Thank you, Q
anybody
Squared,
where
for
you're
37
at.
months of membership.
It became real difficult, it was very frustrating.
Did you ever have problems with the radio prior to that day?
In Parkland, yes.
Tell the jurors about the problems in Parkland. that
You
had.
could be in the station and they could call you and you wouldn't hear it on your radio. You could try transmitting on your radio, it just wouldn't work. You could be in different areas throughout the city that the radio didn't work all the time.
Did you complain to supervisors about the radio?
Oh yeah, they were aware of it. Matter of fact, I was trying to get them to put a repeater at the station at least so we would have more power.
And how long did you remain in a position of cover?
I stayed at that position because I was, as the sergeant, part of my job is the inner-outer perimeter. So with a not working radio, I could at least see where people were responding and going and try to work from there.
So do you have an estimation about how long you stayed in your position of cover?
20 minutes in my position, maybe.
And was Officer Seward with you remaining in that position as
No,
well?
he went in with Coral Springs when they cut the gate. I sent him with them.
Okay. And did you ever go into the 1200 building?
No, I was assigned a different task.
Okay. And
I might have to
are you
abandon
aware of
Melon
Scot
streaming
Peterson's
and go back to
performance as a
StreamYards because
professional?
Melon streaming,
Yeah,
I don't know,
I've worked
just
with him before.
sometimes it
Tell
crashes.
the jurors about that.
Very professional, I
And it's
believe.
very
Matter of
annoying.
fact, He was SRO or.
Very
detective of the
annoying
year
is
a
what
couple
it
times.
is.
I worked details with him at the school probably 4 or 5 times that year. I mean, he's very professional.
Did you have any contact with him after the shooting?
Yes, I ran into him the following day at the crime scene in,
Well, not yet, 'cause that's over with. Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead.
What's your next question? He answered your question, sir. He ran into him the following day. What's your
And
next
is there
question?
anything that you said to him?
yeah, I just said, I thanked him for what he did, and he was very upset. He was, he was very distraught over the whole issue, and I was consoling him.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Cross-examination, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Sergeant.
How are you, sir?
I speak quickly. If you need me to slow down, just let me know.
Yes, sir.
I know you stated it, but I think I missed it. How long were you the sergeant in Parkland before 2018?
I was there probably a year and a half.
And who was your predecessor? Who did you take over for?
I don't know her name. I'm sorry.
Whoever that sergeant was, did they gave you a book about active shootings in,
No, Lieutenant DeVita gave me a book.
Lieutenant DeVita did, okay. And in that book was kind of like a plan of action if there was an active shooting in Parkland.
It had the policies, it had photographs, and and then on some sheets had the main intersections.
With that information, you
Blackadder?
met with Mr. Peterson.
Blackadder
at
so over the
MSD
top
to
and
go
campy.
over that information with him.
Yeah.
So if
but
you
I had
like that
received the
kind of
book. I
thing.
was told as a new supervisor, I went to every school and to meet with the SRO.
So you actually met with Mr. Peterson at Marjory Stoneman Douglas,
Yes,
and you walked the grounds with him.
yes, he was showing me around.
And the purpose of that conversation was to discuss if, worst case scenario, an active shooting occurs, this is the plan.
It was basically to familiarize me with the school, but to be honest with you, like, if there was an incident there, he says the best place for like the command post is actually where we put the command post of this shooting. He says this is where it should go. I mean, he showed me things, but the school is so big. I mean, to be honest with you, it was hard to remember the buildings as it was.
But Mr. Peterson actually gave input into if, God forbid, an active shooting ever happens, this is what we should do. We as BSO.
We didn't discuss what we should do as the active shooter. We had talked about an incident. I mean, we then talked about the operational location for the command place.
And that input was actually given by Mr. Peterson about where the.
He suggested it, yes.
Now, when you arrived, I'm going to show you a map, Your Honor, if I can just use the projector. This can be shown.
Thank you, Rosie, for 7 months of membership.
So you can actually mark.
We love your support. Thank you.
Okay.
Let me just zoom out. Let me see if I can erase what's already on it. Okay, so with the pencil function, you can actually utilize it. So when you got on campus, you testified under direct that you, not on campus, on the Holmberg,
Yes.
you slammed on your brakes.
Yes.
Where was that? Can you just mark that with an X?
Do I hit the pencil first?
No,
Thank you, Mar Loco, for 7 months of membership.
About there.
Okay, so that's kind of like the east side.
But I'm on this, I'm sorry, I'm on this side of the road.
Okay, so let me erase it. I'll
Okay.
just start over.
Sorry. So, I'm sorry.
Let me mark it and you tell me if it's correct.
Yes, sir.
Around there.
Yes, sir.
So on the west side.
Yes, sir.
That's where you slammed on the brakes
Yes, sir.
to block the intersection.
Yes, sir.
And that's after you heard over dispatch from Mr. Peterson to shut down the intersections.
Yeah, I was, it doesn't have your map. I was further down, say here, according to where your map would be.
Okay.
When he was calling, that's when we're coming at a good speed. So that was my reaction time.
Now, how does it work? You're a sergeant, he was a deputy.
Yes.
But in terms of an incident like this, the first responding officer, the first officer there can assume command, basically.
Oh, he was the instant commander, without a doubt, yes.
So even though you outranked him, he was calling the shots because he was there first.
Yes.
So when he told you, lock down the intersection, that's what you did.
Thank you,
Well,
Q Squared, for the $2.
like you said, we only
Like and
have 4 or
subscribe,
5
we can
cars
get to
in
100
Parkland.
people, yeah.
It doesn't have a lot of cars.
We do
so when
appreciate everyone who
there's
likes
any
and
type of a
subscribes
crime,
and
any
helps to
type of a
retweet and bring attention to
burglary,
the
a
channel.
robbery,
Been on a
I had
little
to
bit
do
of a
that,
subscriber
so we would be
decline
able to
lately.
actually cover it.
Like to try to
Because the
reverse
4 or 5
that and bring some new
perimeter
people to the
typically
channel, so
would require more than 4 or
make sure to
5.
share
sir.
out there and bring some attention to the channel.
And that's if everybody was available.
We
to it.
appreciate all you do.
Understood. Now, when you're on Holmberg Road over here, you thought the shots were from kind of like. the
Yeah,
football
Stream
field.
Elements, I
Yeah.
outrank Stream Elements though,
Buildings
so
around
it's
the
fine.
football field?
Haha.
It could have been anywhere from this, can I touch it?
Yes,
It'd
please.
help the algorithm if
This
you walk shorts,
building,
probably.
anything in here. This is
I
where
would
the sound
guess.
I was hearing.
Okay, so it was coming from the southwest of your position.
Yes, because I'm knowing after the fact building, I am to the northeast of it, that corner.
Northeast shots to the southwest, but you're
Yes,
to the
sir.
northeast of where you think the shots are coming from.
Yes, sir.
Now, when you arrived on scene, how many shots did you recall hearing?
Didn't count them. It was several. I don't know.
And those are the only shots you heard the entire time?
Never heard any more.
Okay, so you're there for a couple, well, were you there for a couple seconds when the shots? when you
I
heard
was
the shots?
pulling up. I couldn't tell you if the vehicle was still moving or I had come to a complete stop.
You were.
The shorts are mostly as a
in the
promotion
building
tool
when you heard
for the
shots? Your window-
regular videos
My
as
window was
well.
down.
you
I
know.
don't recall
Why
if
they
I
get-
was in.
that's why one of the reasons
the
they
door
get
was open
like
or not.
released
I couldn't
everywhere.
tell you.
When you were.
If those shorts get
in the
uploaded to
car,
7
Yes.
different places right
focused
now
Looking south towards the, with your.
to try to help
left,
drive a little bit of a
south to the
I
camera?
was looking
Attention
in my
towards the
rearview mirror
channel.
when I was making sure no one was hitting me because when I came to a very abrupt stop.
I need to
I was pretty
take
fast
a
speed.
brief
So
break.
when
I
you
will
heard
be
those
right
shots,
back.
You weren't looking towards the campus, you were looking.
No,
in the
I
rear.
just was hearing the sound and where the sound sounded like it came from.
And you never heard shots again that day?
No, sir.
Now, we just discussed that the first deputy on scene is the, issues the commands.
It's the person that has the most knowledge. It's not always the first deputy on scene, but I would have, because it's being a school, he's familiar with the school, the locations and stuff. Until he's relieved by somebody else, he's the incident commander.
So he was calling the shots though, when you got there?
Yes,
Okay. And as the first deputy, or the one with the most, that's the real-time intelligence, right?
no, I mean, real-time intelligence is, I would have compared to what again, it's knowing after the fact. If I would have, the real-time intelligence would have been knowing the shooter was in what building, where the victims were and all that. That would have been, that's different. But what we're getting is, as we're approaching, it's as it's developing.
The person to whom you look for real-time intelligence though are the deputies that are right there, right?
I'm looking for anyone who has the information, whether if it was Deputy Peterson or with communications or with anybody, whoever can give me the updated as it was happening.
Now, you also testified under direct examination that you, the football field, you thought the shots were from the football
Yeah,
field.
that's where I thought it was from, sir.
You also heard Deputy Kratz call out that there is a victim
Yes.
shot near the football field.
Yes, there were,
Did that call out from Deputy Kratz play into why you thought it was over that far
well,
west?
I'm sure it's all part of when you take in everything, it's your senses. It's not just one thing. I mean, that is part of it. That's why when I requested for a helicopter and canine, we would be proceeding, and that was my thinking that, okay, soon, once I have this set up and the dog gets there, we're gonna start searching for the shooter.
Now, you just, on direct examination, there were questions in regards to the radios, throttling.
Yes, sir.
You heard the dispatch from, or the call out from Mr. Peterson about shots fired.
I heard it from Deputy Peterson saying it,
Yes, and you heard from Deputy Kratz about the football field.
yes.
So you were hearing some in the beginning.
Some of it, not everything, but yes.
And you testified that you saw Goolsby and Perry.
I don't think
go
anyone's
inside
in
the
court, to
gate.
be honest.
Yes,
It
they
looks
went
like
to
it's
the
a
gate
pretty
and they
empty
were moving
courtroom.
towards,
Can you
to
mark
right.
what gate you're talking about?
Every time you show the
Is that
gallery,
right
there's
if I
like
do it like
basically
that?
no one there.
There, yes.
Okay, so the other entrance. the
So
entrance that's
perhaps
west
I
of
was
that,
more
there's
interested in
a
this trial than
gate
anyone else
that
was, which
closes
would
off.
Right,
speak somewhat
and
to the
We're headed.
viewer numbers are not where I want them to
Back
be,
in
at
the
least in
direction.
part because maybe I
And you
picked the
actually
wrong
can see
horse
them
when it
from
came
where
to
you
a trial.
Yes, I could see them going.
And Deputy Seward.
I thought this
is
would be
with
more
you
interesting.
when you first get there, correct?
He's with me until Coral Springs.
I don't think I'm very good at
goes
picking
in
like
the
which
other
live
direction.
stream
So
trials are
Coral
going to be
Springs is
good.
is heading down towards
I
the
didn't think
east
Johnny
side of
Depp was going to
1200
go
building.
anywhere. Look how well
You,
that prediction
Mr. Seward.
panned out,
We're
you know?
Can you just track?
So I don't think when it comes to live stream trials, I'm necessarily very good at picking what's going to be good.
Now, even though you were the sergeant at Parkland, you're not the SRO from Marjory Stoneman Douglas, correct?
No, I'm not the SRO, no, sir.
A lot more people seem to be watching that rapper trial. Well, I did Sarah Boone. I was planning on it.
Based upon the information from Mr. Peterson about locking
Parents in that
doors
shooter
and
trial?
stuff,
Yeah, that's a really
did that
interesting case.
play into why you
I don't know if
stayed in
anyone
the
else would be
position
interested in it, though.
that you did?
Well,
If they're not interested
my
in
main
this, I'm not
reason
sure
was
they're
to
going to be
stop the
interested in that one
traffic and
either, to
get
be
that under
honest.
control. I could see several vehicles in front of me, knowing that we only have so many. I'm assuming most of my cars are there. Okay, so I don't believe there's anybody gonna be right behind me. And if the shooter is out in this field,
And people may be
I don't
dumb
want
for
cars
watching
and
the
people
rapper
going,
trial, but
well,
they're watching it.
don't
That's
go
where
in
the
there either. I
that's
wanna
where the
block
viewers
out.
are, and
So is that coupled
you know,
with
I am
Mr.
in
Peterson
business here, so I do have to kind of give the customer what they want. And apparently, what they want
Pine Island
is a
to
rapper
Lincoln's on the
trial.
right side,
I would have
changed.
stopped
So-
there if I could have stopped there in time.
Stop where? I'm sorry.
I would have stopped at the Pine Island Road if that was feasible at the point. My going up as far as I did was just reaction time, I'm sorry.
Got it. So for you, the time it took you to basically stop
Yes,
your
sir.
car, you were in a squad car?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I wasn't planning on changing horses. I'm too deep into it at this
Now,
point.
how far would you estimate you were from?
I'm
the
too deep
football
in at this point to change
I'm
horses.
over
So
100 yards from my car to the very corner of the building, I would assume.
Now, on direct examination, you stated.
I can't do a rapper trial summary because I'm not watching the trial.
Shots were never fired again, so
I can't give a summary of something I didn't watch in the first place, except through secondhand
If
reporting,
I kept hearing shots.
which is not ideal.
The direction, but I didn't hear any more.
So are you trained that when shots are fired, you move towards the sound of shots?
Yeah, you're supposed to when you can.
And if shots have stopped, then you collect real-time intelligence or look for other stimuli to act upon.
You're trying to determine where, if you can. I mean, again, it's just because you have to determine where, and like, I would be very cautious.
Do you think
on
after
coming
this trial
from where
ends,
I'm
I
at,
go
'cause
to the
would
rapper
be so
trial and try
wide
to pick it
open.
up
I
mid-trial?
don't know how I would approach that.
I don't know about that, you know, because I don't know what's going on. I don't know if that I should try to pick it up mid-trial.
You would be in a better position to kind of go flush against the building as opposed to being 100 yards away?
The beach trial, I have no interest in covering that particularly. I think people are done with Murdaugh. It wasn't that popular in the first place.
On direct examination, you were asked if you ever went into the 1200 building, and you were said you were assigned a different task. What task was that?
I went to set up the command post.
And where on this did you set up the command post?
There.
I missed it. Can you,
Oops, sorry,
Oh.
it went to a line, but But at the end, in the Pine Island
I
Road.
changed it to green, can you just mark?
Maybe I'll just
next
ask the
way
mods
focus
from
on?
now on.
Okay, so actually on Pine Island Road.
I'll ask
Yes.
the mods, and if we
That's
got
the command
consensus
post
from the
where Mr.
moderators,
Peterson recommended,
I'll cover the
and
trial.
should go
We
down.
talked
So
it would
maybe
be on
for your
that road over
future,
in that
maybe for
area.
your future
But I
will
wasn't the one that deemed it to
cover
be
this
there,
trial
so, you know,
needs.
I was
I will
assigned
direct
to
your
go there.
attention
You were assigned to go there.
Yes,
to
I did not deem
Sandra
that to be it. The then
and
incident
Rose
commander was Captain Jordan.
Captain,
and
Jordan.
Christine and Crystal,
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
and if they all say yes, then I'll cover it. I am removing myself from the choosing the trial game. They can help determine what will be best
Sergeant Miller,
with an eye towards
before you
gaining
went
traffic
to
for the channel
the-
is our criteria. What will best
Before you went to the
get
command
us the
post, I think
views,
you said
clicks,
earlier you were in a
likes,
position of cover
watches
for about 15 to 20
is our
minutes, correct?
criteria. And
Yes, I was
if they
over
decide
in
amongst
that area.
themselves, we'll cover it.
Right. And when my
I'm making this
client
their problem now.
locked down the school, did you think that was a prudent action?
Yes, that's
Objections.
Yeah, that's sustained.
Based on your training, do you believe that that was consistent with how you've been trained?
yes, during an active shooter that locked down the school, yes.
Tell the jurors why in this particular circumstance that would have been something consistent with your training.
You don't want any movement to go through the school. I mean, you want to secure the children or the people in the location where they're at, so if the shooter's out and about, it's less chance of getting more victims or targets.
And while my client was the incident commander at first, I think you mentioned just briefly to the prosecutor that, is it Captain Jordan that took over?
Yes, and then there was another one after that.
Was that Colonel Poland?
Shirtless
Yes, it
trial
was the
stream,
last
trust me,
one.
you don't want to
So
see
when
that
a
right now.
higher-ranking
Me shirtless is
person
not a pretty
arrived on
sight.
the
Maybe
scene,
someday,
they
but not
assumed
today.
the role as incident commander, correct?
Again, it was not only so much the higher ranking, but with the experience, I believe Colonel Poland was a SWAT team commander as well, so I think that's why he assumed that.
And the highest ranking person who serves as incident commander is responsible for conducting the debriefing, is that correct?
Yes,
No, we are not doing Daryl
Go ahead,
Brooks.
sir, you can answer the question.
yes, the,
First of all, I don't
Incident
think it's going to be as
commander
interesting
should
as
have
Daryl
done
Brooks versus
a
one. Second of all, I can't
debrief.
believe anyone wants to
Were
see
you
that
ever debriefed?
anymore.
no, I conducted a debrief of my units that was assigned to my shift, but I was never debriefed by anyone.
Why did you conduct a debrief of the people in your command?
It's a common practice,
No, that's overruled. Go ahead, sir, you can answer the question.
it's a common practice when you go to a scene, that's how you get better at responding to stuff by talking
A
about
DUI
what you've
dog was a
seen, what you
massive
observed, what you
disappointment.
did. So we
I
talk
thought it was
about
a
so the next
fantastic
time
thumbnail,
the similar
fantastic story,
event occurs, you
and it
know
didn't play well
what
on the
everyone
channel.
should
I
do
did
and
not
what you
understand
expect
why.
of each other.
I
It's
thought it
not
was
just
a
so much
great
for the
thumbnail, great
supervisor to
story,
work on,
great title,
it's
and
the
it just did
gentlemen on the
not get
ladies on the
clicks.
shift to discuss it
I
as
was
well,
so
so they
disappointed.
can talk about the different positions.
Apparently, my ability to predict the algorithm is
I
shit.
believe you told the prosecutor that hearing Deputy Kratz and others refer to the football field strengthened your belief
Yes, sir.
that shots were coming from the football field, correct?
Yes, sir.
But did you
And it
not
was
tell
like
me
it
that
was like
when you
10 out of
arrived
10.
on scene and
It was
you
the
initially
worst
heard those
performing video
shots,
of the last 10 at the
without
time I
hearing
uploaded
anything
it.
from Kratz, you
I was
believed
like,
they
I
were
thought
coming
this was
from
going to
the
go to the
football.
moon, baby. And it was
So
like the
solely
worst
based upon
performing
the
video.
sound alone,
What
before
bullshit
you
is
hear
this?
anything on the radio, you believe that they were coming from the football field,
Yes, sir.
correct? And final question, there was nothing on the BSO radio that you were listening to that ever told you in real time that there was a shooter inside the 1200 building, correct?
No, sir, never.
So you didn't know that kids or adults were being killed,
No, sir.
correct?
No, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Based on that, any recross?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Just very briefly. You just testified that there was no dispatch call about shooter inside the 1200.
I did not hear that, sir. No.
You didn't hear when Mr. Peterson said inside 1200 over dispatch.
I thought the question was dispatch. I'm sorry.
Did you hear Mr. Peterson say inside 1200?
No, I don't recall. And at the time, I couldn't have told you what the 1200 building was.
Also on, I guess, recross, you were asked about setting up the perimeter. The priority during a shooting is to stop
While he's doing that, defense, you may call your next witness. Whoop. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, real quick restroom break, same admonition as always. Please don't discuss the facts of the case, the evidence, the witnesses, or the testimony amongst yourselves or anyone else. Till we reach the end of the trial, I'll tell you what that is. If you'll just leave the notepads in the chair, step in the back one moment, I'll be right with you. Thank you.
Yeah, you can put the DIU dog story in the chat. That's fine. Why not? Helps drive attention for things to the channel. It's good for the channel. I was pleased that the video that we put up about the Parkland judge did very well. 15,000 views, which is nice for this channel. That did surprisingly well. So that was nice. We need to figure but everything has to some degree be driven by the question of what will help the channel, because this is my business. So we have to think about what content will best satisfy the audience, because there's like infinite law content. We could talk about anything. So the question is picking the content that will best serve the channel in terms of growing the channel and growing viewership and increasing support and all the rest of it. So we have to think about what content will best serve the channel and grow the channel. And the channel has been kind of frozen at its current subscriber count for a little while and is actually slightly down. And I'd like to, have this channel not do that. So we need to figure out what it is to help grow the channel, because that's what I want to do. So, we have to pick content and pick stories that will grow the channel. Check out other channels. I watch pretty much everything. And I don't know what it is that we're necessarily doing wrong. So what I do watch other channels, but it doesn't really teach me what it is that I'm missing, or I haven't learned what it is I'm missing. Except if it's me, and then if it's me, then that's a real problem, right? So if it's just me, as I'm not entertaining enough hope, and maybe I need to up my energy or change my delivery, do something else. Channel. This is Uncivil Law, coming to you with the law that you love. I don't know, change the affect or something, or, all that good stuff. So we'll see what we can do in terms of all that. Get a dog. We could try getting a dog. You don't think the half law tube and true crime are streaming it? Picking something half law tube and true crime are streaming is not the thing. So you think the problem is that we have a blend, that our content is too blended? You think that's the problem, is our content is too blended? Because we've been moving away from just doing hard law all the time, because that's what we used to do, like just courts of appeal cases. We used to just do hard law basically all the time, and just do court cases and court of appeal cases and stuff like that. And we've added into that some true crime stuff and added into that some live trial stuff to try to flesh out our thing. But you think maybe the problem is that we need to just pick one or the other, not try to do everything? That we're casting too big a net and we need to narrow it down more? Maybe that's the problem. I don't know. Bring in guests. We could try bringing in some guests. Bringing in guests is another thing to manage, but it's not necessarily a bad idea. Try to offer commentary when we can. I try not to talk over the witnesses too much because people get irritated by that, but do offer commentary where I can. I just don't have anything really new to say, and I haven't had anything new to say for a while. Lead attorney has AV. What's AV? Audio visual? We have audio visual. What's AV? Yeah, maybe bringing guests is the thing. Who's paying for the defense lawyer? I'm not sure. Screaming goat? We could bring in the screaming goat for sure. If the screaming goat will help, then yeah. Lead attorney here. Shout out to X. Shout out to Y. Yeah, we tried to give shout outs, thank you for subscribing, but I could say shout out to this. I could do shout out instead. Maybe. Okay. We could try that. If you think we should do such and such, put one in chat. One in the stream, high energy. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm surprised my appearances on Friday Night Frenzy doesn't bring in more viewers. Yeah. Rob tries to pimp my channel. Rob tries to get people to come over. So it suggests the problem is me. I'm not attractive enough. I don't have enough energy. I'm not entertaining enough. It suggests the problem is me. I'm a good law professor, but maybe I'm not a great YouTube personality. So maybe that's the problem. Maybe it is me. Ask the chat questions. Like, do you think that, okay. Yeah, ask the chat questions. Yeah, okay, that's fair. Why did I not cover the Molly trial? Who's that? There's a lot of things happening at once. There's a lot of different trials happening. There's a lot of different things happening. So I may not be aware of that trial. I mean, there's a lot of different things going on. Not necessarily getting down on myself. I'm just trying to be honest and self-reflective. I'm just trying to be honest and be like, what is the problem? And I have to at least consider the possibility the problem might be me. And I'm not, just not interesting enough, not polished enough, not interesting enough, not entertaining enough. I have to at least consider the possibility. It's like, okay, is the problem the graphics? Is the problem the background? Is the problem the lighting? Is the problem the microphone? Is the problem the stories? Is the problem the way I'm delivering it? What is the nature of the problem? So just trying to consider different possibilities. The rapper trial, yeah, it just didn't really cross my desk, or I didn't even really pay attention to it. I was like, okay, yeah, just another. I didn't even pay attention to it. I just saw, okay, a rapper's on trial. Like, okay, it didn't even like. I spent probably less than 1/10 of a second thinking about the trial. Is how fast it went in and out of my brain. It just would never occur to me to discuss the trial because I'm like, I can't be. So yeah, I didn't cover it because assuming I knew about it at all, that information went in and out of my brain in under 1/10 of a second because it wouldn't occur to me to cover that trial. So, but that says something about my topic selection and my selections. It's like it wouldn't even occur to me to ponder the possibility of doing it, right? So maybe it says something about my ability to pick cases. What have other creators recommended I do? Nate the lawyer has suggested that I could rewrite my stories into more of an IRAC format, which he kind of uses, issue, rule, analysis, conclusion. And he has a format that works for him. So he has a way of telling it in something approaching an IRAC or a CRAC approach. So he suggested doing that, and he's like, "Oh, what do you think?" And all the rest of it. So I don't want to drink anymore on stream. Not really as much as I used to. I've drunk myself into various versions of stupors too many times, and I don't really want to do that anymore. It's not fun, and it doesn't make me look good. The Paltrow case seemed boring. Yeah. It turned out to be wildly entertaining. Yeah. Yeah, Legal Bites had a sense for that Johnny Depp trial. I didn't. I thought she was when Legal Bites, she said 2 months before that trial started. She said, "I'm going to cover the Johnny Depp trial. I'm going to cover all of it." I'm like, "Isn't it 7 weeks long?" She's like, "Yes." I'm like, "You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. You're going to cover this for 7 weeks straight? There's nothing here. What are you doing?" And it turned out to be the biggest trial of, the last 20 years. So that prediction went horribly, horribly wrong. But she saw something I didn't see. So lost that bet big time. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm not doing shots for money anymore. I don't think. Let's Go Brandon broke me last time he did shots for money. I drank 15 shots in a row, and it was not good. I don't think I should do that again. I didn't feel very good physically, and it wasn't good for me or my channel or people's perception of me. So it turned out to not be a great idea to drink 15 shots in a row. Wow. Amazing discovery by Uncivil Law. Deep. So, yeah. And Rob told me later that he was really disappointed in me for doing that. And, when Rob says that to you, you're like, "Oh, what am I doing?" Because Rob's a good friend and a good guy. So when Rob comes to you and be like, "I'm disappointed in you," I'm like, "Oh, dude." It's like, you got called out by a friend. It's like, "Oh." I was like, "Okay, yeah, you're probably right on that one, Rob." Yeah. Yeah. Rob was disappointed in me for drinking myself into an absolute stupor and making a fool out of myself. Which, yeah. 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 So, good times. Court's back, is it? No, okay. It's just
The opposite to me, always responded whenever I called.
And you were an assistant principal at Marjory Stoneman Douglas
Sorry
for
about
how many
that.
years prior to the shooting?
Over 10 years.
So
let me back up a little
tell us
bit.
about hearing the fire alarm. And we're talking about there was a
Let me back up a little so we don't miss this witness. Just
Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth. Please be seated. And once you're seated, if I can get you to scoot that chair all the way forward as far as it will go, can you please state your full name and spell your full name?
My name is Maximo Rosario, Maximo. Rosario.
Mr. Agarsh, you may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Tell the jurors what you do for a living.
Currently, I work for Broward County Public Schools.
I'm sorry,
as
how do you
a
spell that
director
name,
of,
Maximo?
My name is Maximo Rosario, Maximo Rosario.
Mr. Agarsh, you may
Got it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Tell the jurors what you do for a living.
Currently, I work for Broward County Public Schools as a director of technology support services.
How long have you been with Broward County Schools?
Around 24 years.
And did you ever work at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School?
I did.
In what capacity?
I was an assistant principal.
And were you employed as an assistant principal on the day of this horrible shooting?
I was.
And tell us what your interaction was with someone that you knew as Deputy Peterson, Scot Peterson.
Basically,
Breathe deep. Breathe deep. Breathe deep.
we engaged in any security matters that dealt with the school.
Breathe deep. Breathe deep.
And did you ever see him involved in breaking up any fights? And how close did you get to the 1200 building before you heard shots?
About 30 feet.
Okay. Could you see anybody on the ground?
No.
And do you recognize what's in this photograph that's been marked as
Uncivil is
evidence
starting
as
to lose his
defense
patience a
one?
little bit, right?
Do you recognize this photograph?
I do.
Okay. What is that in relation to where you were?
So that is the west side entrance to the 1200 building, right
Is this the
outside.
Go ahead, sorry,
I'm sorry, right outside the admin office.
all right. And is this the side of the building that you approached? when you
So
heard shots?
I was opposite. So if this is the building here, I was more toward this way.
Okay. But this is the side of the building that you were on?
That's correct. Yep.
You had gotten off of your golf cart, correct?
Yes.
And you were approaching the building, correct?
Yes.
And how many shots did you hear, approximately?
Approximately 5 or 6.
Okay. Did you recognize them as gunfire right away?
Not right away. No.
What did you think that they might have been?
Just loud cracking noises, and then eventually it hit me as if it was gunfire.
And do you have any experience ever hearing gunfire?
I have.
Tell the jurors about that.
I have a permit, and I've gone to the range. I do go to the range on occasion. I've had a permit from prior moving to Florida. So in New York City, I had a permit.
What kind of permit?
It was in New York City was a semi-concealed weapon carry for a semi-automatic handgun.
So even though you've had a lot of experience with gunfire and utilizing guns, at first when you hear the shots, are you saying you didn't recognize right away with certainty that was gunfire?
That's correct, I did not.
Did you have a thought as to what you thought it might be?
Originally, when we were responding, we thought it was firecrackers that were
Right.
going off in the building.
Right.
And that's what I was assuming it was
Okay.
originally.
And when you were standing approximately 30 feet from the 1200 building, in the west side of the 1200 building, where did you believe those shots were coming from?
So I believe it was coming from behind me, because at that point, my back was towards the 1200 building. I was facing the 700 building. I believe it was coming from behind me.
Okay.
However, I couldn't really pinpoint where exactly behind me it was.
Okay. Did you think that they were coming from inside or outside, or both?
I couldn't tell.
So what was in play first was possibly inside or outside, correct?
Could be.
And if you could show us on this map what possibly could have been the area that you thought the shots were coming from, okay? Include every possibility.
So I was standing in this area right here, as I stated earlier. It could have been coming from this area. I'm not, precisely don't know where they're coming from. I'm standing here, and my back was towards that area, so I'm facing this way.
I'm going to need to describe what you just said for the record, and maybe you
Sure.
can help me, because it won't show this, that.
Okay.
So first, point to the first place that you said the shots could have been coming from.
So I believe it could have been from this back area here, which is the 1300 building.
All right, so you're pointing to the 1300 building.
Yeah.
Let's start there. Did you know whether it was coming from inside the 1300 building or outside?
I couldn't tell.
Could you tell whether it was coming from the roof or from a particular floor?
Could not tell.
Could you tell whether it was coming from the north side of the 1300 building?
No.
The west side of the 1300 building?
No.
The east side?
No.
The whatever side that I didn't say, because I'm getting tired?
That's the south.
That's
No.
the south side, yes.
No.
You couldn't tell. That was a possibility, correct? Did you also consider that it could have been coming from the parking lot area?
Well, I didn't think that far ahead, but it could have been coming from anywhere, right? I really couldn't pinpoint specifically where the shots. I just know something was from behind me.
So you couldn't rule out the parking lot, correct?
Me, no.
All right. And this parking lot area, okay, this is what they call the senior lot?
That's correct.
How many cars does it hold approximately? Do you know?
About 500.
So this is a massive, large lot, correct?
It is. Mhm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, it is.
All right. Did you also think that the shot, since you were standing over here and it was behind you?
So I was standing over here.
Oh, that's correct. Did you also consider it could be in this courtyard area between the 12 and 1300 building?
Sure.
Yes? And you couldn't tell whether it was extended northbound or south or east, west?
No, I could not tell you.
Okay. Also, it could have been 1200 building, correct?
Correct. I couldn't tell you.
Could it have been any sides of the 1200 building that you heard shots from?
Again, I couldn't identify where they were coming from.
I understand.
Mhm.
Did you ever hear anyone order a code red?
I did.
Who did you hear order a code red?
So over the radio, I heard Mr. Morford call a call red.
You recognize his voice, correct?
I did.
Did you ever see any kids come out of neighboring buildings?
So the students were starting to come out of the 700 building, and the bottom part of that, which is connected to what we call the 500, 600 area. So students were coming out of that area because there are 3 buildings connected to each other.
Approximately, you can't give an exact number, approximately how many students were coming out of the 700 and the connecting 500 building?
So so classrooms were evacuated. When you talk about classrooms, you're talking about 25, 30 students per class that are coming out of that area. So I would say anywhere between, and in my visibility, there was maybe 5 or 6 classrooms there, so I'm seeing a crowd of students, maybe 60, 70, 80 students coming out of that area.
How many total, I didn't hear you, how many
So
total?
what I saw was about 60 or to 70 or 80 students coming out because they evacuated those buildings, but that whole building houses close to 20 classrooms.
Okay, so how many total students, both combining the 700 and you said the adjoining
The 500 building, which
Okay.
is right below it, so
And how many students are we talking about?
anywhere between 600 to 1,000 students can be in that building.
Okay. Were you ever asked to compile a list of all the students that came out of the buildings?
No, it was not.
Is that something that could be done by going to the office and printing out who?
It's a matter of a master schedule, yes.
Okay. When you heard the shots and you didn't know where they were coming from, did you look around?
I did.
And could you tell by looking around where they were coming from?
I could not.
You didn't see any smoke?
I did not, no.
You didn't see any blood?
No, I did not.
You didn't smell anything that led you to believe it was coming from the 1200 building?
I did not.
You didn't see any kids running out of buildings other than the ones
Well,
that...
not the 1200 building. I was seeing students coming out of the 700 building.
Got it. Have you ever experienced an echo in that area before?
Yes.
Describe for the jurors, first, before the shooting, what you experienced.
So that's a courtyard. So during passing, you can hear it's very loud. It's very loud underneath the staircase because it's a covered walkway, and it's a courtyard. So the noise does get trapped in that area.
Okay. And on the day of the shooting, that also would have been in play, correct?
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with your hearing, is there?
No.
Okay. After the first shots that you heard, did you ever hear any additional shots?
I only heard the 5 to 6 shots that I mentioned earlier.
You never saw any muzzle flashes, correct?
I did not.
Never saw any bullets coming out of windows or anything?
I did not.
Did you ever see my client during the shooting?
I did.
And what did you see?
I saw Deputy Peterson standing at the other side of where I was originally.
That was considerably far from you, correct?
It was at the end of the 1200 building on the east side of that, opposite of that east entrance of the 1200 building.
And what did you see him doing, sir?
I saw him leaning against the column that was there. I believe his hands were occupied with his radio, but I couldn't tell what was in his hands. I know he was one hand was leaning on his shoulder here, and he seemed to be leaning towards that, and then he has something else in his hand. I just couldn't identify what that other item was.
One final question. If in that moment, when you heard those shots, and someone told you, go precisely where those shots were, could you have done that?
Objection is speculation.
No, that's overruled. So I don't want you to guess, but if you can answer the question based on your personal...
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. In that moment, thinking back, when you heard the shots, if someone had said, go towards the shots, could you have identified precisely where those shots were coming from?
No, I couldn't.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming in.
Cross-examination, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Rosario.
How's it going?
I speak quickly. If you need me to slow down, you'll let me know.
So we've heard. Is my shoe polish here in the mail yet?
All right, so let's go back to the 14th of February.
No, still not.
Scot Peterson's the school resource officer at MSD, correct?
That's correct.
What are his
my shoe
daily
polish.
tasks?
Basically, he comes in the morning. He would assist with traffic, as we all do. We all had our different, stations where we were located. Some of them had coverages in different areas. I recall him covering traffic in the morning along with other police officers and crossing guards and things of that nature. Then he would come in and he would either meet with parents or assist administrators throughout the day.
What does that mean, assistant administrators?
If there were any cases where we needed to consult with Deputy Peterson at the time regarding anything that included some infraction by a student.
So not necessarily crimes, also infractions.
Well, only if they dealt with crimes. We did it if it was a school discipline nature only, then we wouldn't consult with him. Only if it was something to deal with law enforcement.
Okay. So he would also be responsible, like, if kids were vaping?
Correct. That could have been, if that's an infraction that's covered in our code of student conduct, right? But if it was an actual crime, then we would consult with him at that time. So if there was a vaping event, and we will consult with him.
Okay, so
in that
if events you
situation.
consult with him, what if there's like a minor traffic crash in the parking lot?
He will also assist with that as well.
Anything else off the top of your head, his daily tasks that he would do?
I know he helped during class changes. He will go out during the class changes as well. He will be standing out there either in the courtyard or in the front office, or if the front office needed him for whatever reason. Those are the kind of things that I
To make sure students get to their classes before.
Correct,
bell
correct,
rings?
and orderly, correct.
So like kind of like almost like truancy type issues?
Not, I wouldn't say truancy, but just making sure that that students are moving from one class to the next in an orderly fashion without any disturbances with each other.
So now, fire alarm goes off, and you went to the panel. I can't
Correct.
say the word.
Enunciator panel, I know, I struggled with it too. So.
Where is that panel?
That panel is actually located in what we had as Deputy Peterson's office.
So it's in Mr. Peterson's office?
Yes,
And that's the only panel in the school?
that's the only panel that I recall.
Okay.
Yes.
And on that panel, if you could just describe for the jury, what does the panel look like?
It's a set of numbers and what we call fish numbers, which are your classrooms, plus a little light next to those areas. That is pretty much like a map of the school that shows you where that particular fire alarm was triggered from.
So when the fire alarm is triggered, it would say, for instance, 1200 building.
It would indicate the 1200 buildings.
And did it also say something like gas that day?
I don't recall if it said gas on it.
Now, I know Mr. Bush showed you this map. I just like to use this one. I'm showing you what states 1. Now, your screen is actually interactive, and you can draw on it. Your Honor, if I can be an annotator. Scroll in just a touch. So you can actually mark this with your finger.
Okay.
Okay. So when you hear the fire alarm go off, where are you?
So I'm in building 1.
Can you just mark that with an X, approximately where you were?
This is building 1 right here.
Okay. So you get into the golf cart,
Mm-hmm.
and which route do you drive?
So I go across the main courtyard, what we call the main courtyard, which is through here, across that way.
And did you park where you ended that line?
I park right alongside that area there, which is, it's hard to see the map, but there's a staircase there because of the cover, right alongside that staircase.
Okay. And that's your assigned area for fire
Yes.
alarms? Okay. Now, when you're standing there, you hear shots, you hear the loud noise.
So once I get off the golf cart, I came over to this area a little bit further out, which is this area right here, right by, there's a fence there, right? A fence with a gate. So I stopped at that area there, so I can visualize the traffic flow both from the both ends here and this area coming to me from the students. So that's where I stopped and heard the gunfire.
And you're facing south, you're facing away.
And I'm facing the building, correct.
You said building, so you
I'm facing the 700 building away from the 1200 building.
So where you stopped, you approximated that at about 30 feet?
I approximate about 30 feet.
Could it be more than that?
It could be.
Now, when you got up there after the fire alarm, did you look to the east side, I'm sorry, the west side doors of the building?
So there's a bush there. I had no visibility to the door.
So if Aaron Feist was on the ground at that point in time, you wouldn't have been able to see him?
No.
Not from your vantage point?
Not from my vantage.
Now, after you hear the shots, it's not part of your job responsibility to investigate the location of the shots, is it?
No.
What is your responsibility during a code red?
So during a code red is to ensure that the students and staff are secured behind a locked door and then get myself secured behind a locked door.
And you did that day?
So I didn't get myself secured behind a locked door. I did get the students back into this building. I did hear another radio call come in after the code red where another assistant principal had students out in the field by the 900 building.
Can you just mark where that is?
Sure. So the 900 building is right here. And she has students in this area here all out of the building.
Okay.
Right? And that building houses, again, approximately about another 800 to 1,000 students. 800 to about 1,000 students in that area.
So that's where a lot of the students went after the fire alarm /
So
red went.
that building had evacuated, right, completely. And the other assistant principal, Ms. Figueroa, had called over radio that she was outside. She wanted more indication. At that time, I indicated that to hang tight. I got my students secured that I was going to head over along with the head custodian that was in the courtyard in the area with me as well. We both went out to that area to assist her with the students and not bring the students back. We evacuated the students over to West.
To West Glade, so you
Correct.
evacuated them west. That's,
Right.
that, the person with you is the head custodian at Suarez?
Yeah, these Suarez, yes.
Now, over the radio, you heard Jeff Morford announce the code red.
Correct.
You never heard Scot Peterson announce the code red.
I did not, no.
Now, you said on direct, the sound was kind of trapped in the courtyard. Which courtyard are you talking about?
So this is called the PE courtyard, which is, so this is the gym. This building right here is the gym, right? This is the 700 building right here. This is the 500 building, and in here is a courtyard with a staircase. So it's like an open, smaller courtyard. There's a main courtyard where I cut across that big one. This here is the main courtyard.
So
Right.
that, I'm sorry. Continue.
So I was standing in the smaller courtyard, which is what we call the PE courtyard.
And where, Mark, did you see Scot Peterson standing?
So Scot Peterson, I saw him standing. Now the trees blocks it a little bit, but he was outside around this area here.
Now, after you secured the students in the 500 building, correct?
Yes, sir.
You then moved south with Mr. Suarez.
I then moved towards the 900 building south. That's correct.
How long would you estimate, and you can just estimate this, were you in the position facing south to help the students after the shots? Ballpark.
5 to 7 minutes.
When you saw Scot Peterson, where was he looking?
He was facing the 1200 building.
And the shots, they were loud?
They were.
Assistant principal, what were you the assistant principal of?
So I was in charge of seniors and guidance, math, and the career technical education program.
So different APs, different assistant principals have different tasks.
That's
different
correct.
Assignments, okay. As part of your assignment, did you attend a class in January of 2018 in regards to Code Reds?
I did.
Was Mr. Peterson there?
I believe all security staff was there, yes, including the Deputy Peterson, yes.
And at that class, what were you taught to do in your position?
So under Code Red, we were taught to lock down, secure the building, and then wait for law enforcement to come in and take over the situation. We basically just ensured that the building was locked down.
And law enforcement will take care of any shooters if it's an active shooter situation?
So for me, law enforcement takes care of the situation after that. Yes, once we're locked down, we are not, Code Red for us means no mobility, right? Lock down, stay behind closed door until you hear further from law enforcement.
Now, after you went to West Glade with the students, you actually went back to MSD later that day, right?
So it was about, yes, later in the evening. It was about 5, 6 o'clock in the evening that I was returned back to
Because
MSD.
you were like the IT guru.
Correct.
So part of your responsibility, or what you were asked to do, was basically download the videos that we've seen.
Correct. That's correct.
And on campus, the school resource officer is the only person with a gun, correct?
Correct.
At any point in time during the 5 to 7 minutes that you were, I guess, herding the students back into the 500, at any point in time did you turn around to face the 1200 building?
Briefly, I don't think I might have just looked back.
Like kind of glance back as opposed
Yes.
to you didn't position your entire body around?
I did not. Most of the time I was facing the 700 building.
And when you were, let's say, herding them back, I'm just going to erase this for a second. Where were you standing? Were you standing in the same spot that you were?
So I was a
I'll
little
zoom in
bit.
a little bit for you.
Yeah.
Let it
All right.
get a little bit clearer, hopefully. There we go.
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a fence right here. So once I was herding the students back, I was a little bit further in, so I was like in this area right here, that's like in the center of the courtyard itself. There's a staircase, this is the opening of the staircase, it's a staircase there, and then there's an open walkway right above here. So if you go across here, this is actually a walkway where students come out of the classrooms, they walk in that area, and then they head towards the staircase. So they have visibility to me, and I have visibility to them.
So any student going down that staircase or on that walkway, you were telling
Correct.
to get away?
To get back and lock themselves down into the
And
classroom.
you're locking the classroom, did any of them flee south?
So all the students I saw them go back into the classroom.
Just one moment, Sean. I have nothing further from Mr. Rosario. Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Mr. Rosario.
Based on that, we redirect.
Just one question.
Go ahead.
At any time during the time that you're here in this area by the 1200 building, including the time where you glance back and you're looking at the 1200 building, was there any evidence to you in real time that there was a shooter inside the 1200 building shooting children? and
Not to
adults?
me, no.
No, correct?
Not to me, no.
Thank you.
Based on that, we recross.
Just one question. Was it your job to identify where an active shooter was
No,
on
sir.
Marjory Stoneman Douglas campus?
No, sir.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay, is the witness excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, sir, you may step down. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, based on the time, we'll press pause on the trial at this point. A little bit of a different schedule going forward tomorrow, only because of some other matters that I have to handle, which have nothing to do with this trial. I don't want you waiting around for me in the morning, so you're going to have the morning back at your normal lives. What I'm going to ask you to do is tomorrow, which is Thursday, June 22nd, eat lunch on your own, and I'm going to ask you to be at the jury room at 12:30 p.m. 12:30 p.m., and then we're just going to go through the work for the afternoon.
Cool. So we get to do a Supreme Court react, and then we get to do this trial tomorrow. So that's cool.
So, ladies and gentlemen, same admonition as always.
they're
Please do not discuss
12:30.
the facts of the case, the evidence, the
Yeah,
witnesses,
so
or
we
the
get to do
testimony
Supreme Court
amongst
react
yourselves or
at
anyone
9.
else. Please do not do any research on the case. I'm going to ask you to
Excellent.
not watch the news, do not read
Excellent.
the newspaper. If you will leave the notepads in your chairs, they will be waiting for you when you come back. Have a good night. I will see you tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. 12:30 p.m. in the jury room.
Cool. All right. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of today. We will be on tomorrow at 9 for Supreme Court React. Well, maybe a little bit later because I have to wait for the decisions to actually be announced. So 9:15 we'll plan for. And we'll be on to deal with Supreme Court React as the Supreme Court comes down. They don't do 10-minute increments anymore. So I can't do where I used to do, where it's like, oh, I'll just discuss them in 10-minute increments, your Supreme Court analysis in 10 minutes or less, or it's free. Because now they're just like, oh, it's whenever it comes out. So I don't have that interval anymore. So that's annoying. So I don't know how many decisions are going to come and how fast they're going to come. So yeah. So anyways, we'll be on at 9:15 and we'll start doing Supreme Court React. And then we will move from there towards more trial tomorrow. Thank you, MLC, $20. Thank you for covering the Kirk case. It may not be the best clickbait, but it's interesting legal case potential implications. I appreciate your coverage. You're welcome. But we obviously need to strive as a business to try to satisfy as many customers as possible. We'd like to bring in as many people, have the channel grow as big as it can, and all the rest of it. So we need to do whatever we can towards that goal. But I appreciate that you're enjoying this content. And then we'll try to find content that everyone can enjoy. That'd be great. There's something for anybody. Let's find something for everybody. That's the real thing. But yeah. And yeah, we'll the mods and I will talk behind the scenes about potential upcoming trials and see what see what looks good. So if you have recommendations, let them know, and we'll talk amongst ourselves and try to predict what the next big trial is going to be. I think Courtney Clenny will be probably pretty big with the OnlyFans case, I would imagine. And then from there, we'll see what else is on the list. Uncivil is definitely sleepy. Uncivil is having energy problems. Uncivil is contemplating dragging his ass to the gym and is very grumpy about it because he's tired. But, you know. Yeah. I'm going to sign off for now. Until later, I hope all's well. Cheers, my friends, and goodbye.